Good evening and welcome to our ordinary meeting of Council, the 26th of February 2024. Acknowledgement of Country. Acknowledgement of Country. Lithgow City Council acknowledges Wiradjuri elders past and present of the Wiradjuri Nation, the original custodians of the land on which the Lithgow's communities reside. The Council also extends our respects to our neighbouring nations. Declaration of webcasting. I inform all those in attendance at this meeting that the meeting is being webcast and that those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillor or employee, and refrain from discussing those matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice. All councillors are here tonight. There are no apologies. Are there any declarations of interest this evening?
I'd like to declare an interest, non-significant pecuniary interest in item 9.3. As Heritage Advisor for the foundations, I will absent myself from the room when that item is being discussed.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Any others? Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 30th of January 2024. Could I have somebody move these, please? Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Have a seconder? Yes. Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. All those in favour say aye.
I'd like to speak against the minutes.
Certainly, Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. I'm not voting for these minutes. The last 20 minutes of the last council meeting was an absolute abhorrent. I too have my own network of current councillors, former mayors and current mayors. Talking about the code is actually a breach of the code. It should never have happened.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Leslie?
Yes, I also have a question. About 20 minutes before the end of the last meeting, as I was leaving, you said there'd be a letter in the post to me. I have not yet received that. I was wondering if I could.
What was that in regard to, Councillor Leslie?
I have no idea, but you said that there'd be a letter in the post.
My apologies. I'll take that on notice and I'll get back to you tomorrow.
Councillor's statement, if I may. In relation to the last meeting, I'd like to bring it to everyone's attention that the business papers, even today, reference clause 241 of the Local Government Act General Regulations 2005. I'm sorry, the Act was superseded by the Local Government Act General Regulations 2021 and clause 241 was deleted. In fact, so was 240, 239 and 238. There is no provision in the regulations for urgent business. And I'd like to move that urgent business is struck from the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. The General Manager will just speak to that. Thank you, Councillor Ring.
I was just advising the Mayor that we're dealing with the confirmation of the minutes, and I think you're looking to move a motion, are you, to do with standard practice in relation to the formatting of the business paper?
Yes, I am. I can move that after this if you want.
Councillor Ring, could you please bring that up in matters of great urgency?
No, I will move it as per the Code of Meeting Practice as a motion from the floor. And under the Code of Meeting Practice, I only need someone to second it, and the only person who can speak to is myself, and then it goes to a vote.
I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
Look, can we take that on notice? There's some discussion that they may not be correct. I'm not saying you're not correct.
Oh, no, I'm correct. Trust me, I'm correct.
Certainly I trust you, Councillor Ring.
20th of August 2021, the new Act was brought in.
Thank you for advising us on that. Any more?
Yes,
Councillor Martin?
I'd like to speak to it. I was uncomfortable with a couple of matters that came in front of the last meeting. I think HR matters don't have a place in an open meeting. and I thought it was inappropriate that the last item came in under a matter of great urgency. It should have been brought forward as a confidential notice of motion if it was to be brought forward. I thought it was inappropriate that it was brought forward. I also had issues with another matter that dealt with a resignation of a councillor. I didn't feel that needed to be brought into a public meeting either. I won't be supporting the endorsement of the minutes either.
Well, maybe I should have watched the last meeting. I never watch a council meeting, by the way.
Well, I only watch it because I'm here.
All right, anybody else? The minutes. So do we have a mover? We have a mover for the minutes, Councillor Bryce, and we have a seconder, Councillor Goodwin. I'm going to put that to the vote, please. All those in favour of the minutes say aye. Against? I'll call a division on that, thank you. Councillor Bryce, this is in favour of the minutes. Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee and Councillor Leslie and myself. Against the minutes is Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring and Councillor Marnie. So a division. Once. All right. Pardon? So that's carried. Thank you.
Can I just have a question?
Certainly.
When do we deal with the matter that Councillor Ring has brought up?
If it's legal to take it as a late notice of motion, I'd need to be advised on that. Thank you.
Respect Mayor statement under the Code of Meeting Practice. Any council can move a motion as long as there's a seconder without notice, and that is the only person who can speak to it, and it's put to the vote.
Pardon? Well, I'm being directed at the moment to have it as a matter of great urgency, so either way you'll get heard, Councillor Ring. Thank you.
Whatever.
On behalf of the Lithgow City Council, the Mayor and councillors express sincere sympathy and condolences to families who have lost loved ones since our last council meeting. I had an email from Councillor Goodwin. He has requested that council commemorate the passing of Mr Paul Carter, a lifelong local who served the community for 53 years in Fire and Rescue New South Wales. Councillor Goodwin and I attended that funeral. Thank you, Councillor Goodwin, for bringing that to my attention. I requested that the council commemorate the passing of Mr Darryl Cooper, who recently passed away. Mr Cooper was an amazing man, a regular attendee at the Lithgow Aquatic Centre. I knew him well personally and had a medical episode while swimming last week. Our condolences to his wife Gloria and family. The wonderful staff at the pool revived Mr Cooper and he was admitted to hospital. Unfortunately, he later passed away. I also take this opportunity to recognise the care and compassion given by our council staff at the Lithgow swimming pool. I have also been requested that council commemorate the passing of Mr Ian Litchfield, OAM, who dedicated 60 years as a volunteer with the Rydal Show and was a pillar of our community. Last but not least, I would like to congratulate the Chamber of Commerce for the information sessions that they had last Wednesday at Black Gold and tours of the community on Thursday. Thank you to Councillor Steve Ring for that. Public forum. Any person registered to speak during public forum on matters included in the business paper and registered via the council website prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting will have the opportunity to speak this evening. There will be only 2 speakers for and against on each matter on the business paper. Public forum will be allocated half an hour time in total, with each speaker having 3 minutes to speak. Speakers not registered for public forum will have an opportunity to speak on matters on the business paper. Our first speaker tonight is Mr Evangelistis. Thank you. Could you come forward, please, Mr Evangelistis?
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to speak in favour of 9.4, which is Councillor's Ring motion to have a look at the rates again, especially for business. I think attracting new business to town is one thing, keeping the businesses here is another. I mean, it's a big decision to leave a town where you've set up a business. So we really need to relook at a special rate variation and not be scared to just go back and maybe we could have done that a little bit better and a little bit more care. 9.3, Councillor Mahoney's for Ironfest. I mean, this could be the first step of getting this great event back. So I really hope the councillors support it. And I wanted to thank council for use of the Union Theatre for the Comedy Festival. I mean, this is absolutely fantastic. The Union Theatre is such a gem, and we're going to do our launch night there, and I can't help but thank the council for that. So thank you very much. And I hope all the councillors attend the Comedy Festival this time. I know 2 of them did last time, but I'd really want to see everyone there. I think it's a great event for the town. And the Union Theatre, I mean, when I showed the comics where they'll be performing, they were blown away. Fantastic. So once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr
Can I
Evangelides.
just
Could you
ask-
please provide some information and dates to the councillors, please, regarding the Comedy Festival?
Launch night, March 22, Union Theatre. Next night, Workies, which have also been fabulous to us, 23rd of March. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bryce? Smith, please.
Good evening. I'd like to speak on the submission for the road closures which just ended just recently, and also ownership of land around the Lake Lyell area. I've had a lot of discussion with council in regards to this, and this is not only Sir Thomas Mitchell Drive, but Lockers Line Road and Bloody Cutting Road, which is still undefined where these road closures will occur. Before it's handed over to an overseas company, it would be handy to know exactly where the line in the sand is, where these actual points of closure occur. Last correspondence I had with council, the surveyor did supply a plan, but it was only a sketch. I asked for contour points to actually get the actual location, because there was a surveyor's plan, but it didn't clearly mark these without knowing where water levels would be. And as we know, water levels in this area vary with climatic conditions, with drought, and who knows what future projects might vary the water also. So it was keen to know where these positions were firmly established. I did not get this at all. From the legal and property representative and also the general manager, they said that I'd received all the information possible and that I wasn't basically getting any more information. So without anybody knowing in the whole area where these actual closures are, why should council proceed to hand something over where they don't even know where they are for a start if the public doesn't know? So my question is to the council, before you make a decision on handing something over to an overseas company, consider it to be left in the hands of the locals and know where we're going with this. Now, I've got 3 main questions. One is that, define those positions, and as the legal officer said to me, this area would be submerged, but she won't admit exactly when this would be, how, or what, so it's still at question marks. So I'd like that defined exactly on an elevation plan and know exactly where this happens. Because as we know, this road at Sir Thomas Mitchell was cut off some time back, and it was due to a public risk analysis, which it doesn't appear to be done, or if it was done, no one seems to be in hand of it and even know if this was done. Now, I'm in favour of doing these risk analysis. We want safety in the dam. We certainly don't want people getting into trouble and all that sort of stuff. But, well, why was this then reopened again and been opened ever since? And the main point of this closure, this is well above dam level, even in its highest level. So that gate is not, if that's where the gate is going to be, it's quite obvious it's not submerged, as the council figure told me. So we want that cleared up. And land.
Move an extension.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Have a second to thank you.
Yeah, happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. All those in favour say aye. Carried, thank you. Continue, thank you, Mr Smith.
Now, I would like to know what land is actually owned by the council and the ratepayers around the same area of Lake Lyell. This goes for the roads and the accesses, the recreational areas, and I had a discussion with a guy from Energy Australia the other day, and he said there was even some idea or view that they even owned the road across the dam wall. Now, it does honestly ask a question. Is that why Energy Australia paid $250,000 just recently to have the road redone? Do they own that road? So the question is, what do we own all around the dam, and what control does the council and the ratepayers have on that area in Lake Lyell? And I'd like those questions answered clearly, because I put a submission in about this road closure, and I think there's some outstanding answers still to be given. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Mayor Statham, can I ask a question through the administration?
Just
Please.
repeat that. Thank you,
Can I ask a
Councillor
question
Goodwin.
through the administration to the General Manager? Can you comment on any of these questions at all that Mr. Smith's brought up? Because I don't know much about it.
Mr. General Manager, thank you.
Well, just to deal with Mr. Smith's request at the end there about clarification about ownership of the foreshores and other areas, well, as is a practice with public forum, we note the comments that are made in the request, and we'll circle back to Mr. Smith and try and clarify the information he's seeking and try and meet that. In relation, and I have been included in some correspondence between our property and legal section and Mr. Smith as part of the consultation process, and we've extended that consultation, and we've complemented that exhibition material by a survey. But the best way for those in the public gallery or those viewing tonight to describe the situation is there's an historical road which is beneath water, and this actually started before I commenced with the council 4 years ago. There were historical discussions about removing those roads. We periodically clean up and clarify road ownership issues. We're working through a big program of those. So this, I say very, very clearly, and ultimately it will all come back to the council for decision, but the road closures relate to parcels of land which are below the water. They were there before the dam was created, and we're merely cleaning those up. I say absolutely, there is no relationship to any contemplation that this council may or may not give in the future to adjusting the public's rights of access to the foreshore, and nor is it related at all to the pumped hydro concept. There's nothing to hide here. The roads are beneath water, and we're just clearing those up.
Mayor Stephen, with respect, could I just make a very short statement?
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Ring.
Just for the benefit of Mr. Smith and the people watching, Council has its land registers on its website which list operational and community lands. Anyone can look up on the website to see what lands Council owns.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Next in public gallery we have Gay Mason. Thank you.
Mayor, councillors and community members, speaking in support of Eric Marnie's motion 9.2 about reviewing our tree management policies. I know that I will never see a shade sail lovely as a tree. My name's Gay Mason. I've lived in Lithgow for much of my adult life. My primary school years were lived at Barrabra, a hot, dry town northwest of Tamworth. I returned there for the first time about 5 years ago. One of the first things I noticed was that town-wide, the trees had disappeared. I was saddened to find the old school residence where we had lived was gone, along with the enormous pepper tree that took up a lot of the front yard, where we played and climbed and made cubby houses, and under which Mum, as the principal's wife, taught sewing classes in the welcome shade in pre-air conditioning summers. Gone too was the very big apricot tree covered with buckets of apricots every year just when we were heading off for school holidays. So that one of our last holiday preparations was giving away apricots and organising someone to come and pick the last of them. Also gone was the beautiful young ironbark tree with its indented bark, home to so many creepy crawlies, spiders, bugs and visiting birds. Why am I telling you about this place? Because trees form part of our memories of time and place. We notice their absence when they're gone, when they've been removed. I asked one of the locals what had happened to the big, beautiful, shady pepper trees that were throughout the town when I lived there, and was told they'd had to be removed because they tend to drop branches. Several farmers had lost sheep that had been sheltering in the shade when a branch fell. Even sheep have enough sense to appreciate shade trees. I was told the local council had taken a poll of townspeople to determine the trees they wanted in place of those removed. They overwhelmingly decided on English plane trees, and I admit I was horrified. With all our beautiful native trees, why would they want plane trees? English plane trees, Platanus acerifolia, I discovered, make ideal street trees. They are the second most common species in the city of Sydney. According to one Google search, the most common street tree in the world. They perform most of the functions we need from trees, which Councillor Marnie has spelled out well in his commentary. They help remove pollutants from the atmosphere, they provide shade and coolness, home for many creatures. The trunk has beautiful patterns revealed as the bark is shed. Autumn leaf display is very attractive and the fallen leaves make beautiful compost. Being deciduous, they allow the roadways under them to dry out in winter. They grow well with their roots under bitumen and cement. They're known for needing little ongoing maintenance, while being easy to shape around obstacles such as buildings and power lines, tolerating pruning well.
Move in extension.
Seconds.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman and Councillor Ring. All those in favour say aye. Thank you, carried.
They're also regarded as having long lifespans of easily 200 or 300 years. No wonder they're grown so frequently, and there's a beautiful avenue down near the pool. In November 2023, Lithgow Council proposed to remove 7 of these trees from Short Street beside Lithgow Primary School because they're at the end of their lifespan and it has been identified that the trees have major structural faults and thereby pose a direct risk to the community. I've become quite cynical as I've grown older. These days, if you want anything done without argument, you claim it is high risk, and few can then argue against it. Vast numbers of trees in school grounds have been removed and replaced with shade sails because of the high risk of them falling on students. Thousands of trees have been removed along roadsides due to high risk of people running into them, or of them falling or dropping branches, especially after fires. I'm definitely not qualified to say that these or any other trees don't pose a high risk, but I have enough lived experience to be sceptical and to know that life is a risky business. I note that the management comment concludes, there has been some preliminary community consultation about the trees in Short Street. It was intended for this matter to be returned to Council for a decision if there's a case for any removal of trees. I'm puzzled by this because I recall a notice in Community Connections and on Facebook last November stating that, commencing Saturday 25th of November 2023, Lithgow City Council will remove 7 London plane trees in Short Street, Lithgow. Remaining groundwork will be completed on Monday 27th of November 2023. Understanding there are high voltage power lines above each of these trees will be replaced with a more suitable alternative later in the season. Nature was on the side of tree supporters on that occasion and poured 59 mils of rain on us that weekend, so the work couldn't proceed as planned. I could speak for hours about the large trees on public land that have been removed and not replaced. For example, outside Zigzag Motel. Removed and replaced by shrubs or small trees, e.g. alongside the Tallis building or in Queen Elizabeth Park. About significant trees removed and not replaced on private properties to which we feel connected, such as St Pat's School and Hoskins Church grounds, but I'd better not. When Council's current tree management policies are reviewed in the near future, I believe they should include an amendment to ensure that trees removed from public land and any large prominent trees removed from private properties be replaced by trees of similar stature of appropriate species. That would also include Coles car park, where they removed the trees and didn't replace them. I would also urge Council to undertake planting of more trees for the good of our community and as responsible action for our environment in view of the thousands of trees removed in our LGA during and after the bushfires. As I've said before, plant trees for the health of the people, the well-being of the community and the survival of the planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Mason. Our next speaker this evening is, and forgive me if I get the pronunciation incorrect, Gungia Savanas? I'm not sure. Please come forward, thank you.
Gundi, Mayor Statham. Thank you. Thank you. Forgive me reading because my short-term memory isn't what it was. Thank you for the opportunity of addressing this council meeting about the proposed removal of 7 London plane trees in Short Street, Lithgow. I'm speaking as a representative of neighbours who are opposed to the action. I will be making these 3 important points in relation to item 9.2. 1, the lack of community consultation. 2, the viable condition of the plane trees. And 3, future options. Firstly, we are concerned about the lack of community consultation. The only information about the proposed removal was received by neighbours on only one side of Bank Street, Lithgow, where I live, which is around the corner from Bent Street. The information was a 1-page flyer dated 22nd November 2023 that stated Council proposes to remove 7 London plane trees in Short Street, Lithgow. The flyer stated, and I quote, 7 of these trees require removal as they are at the end of their lifespan, have major structural faults and pose a risk to property and life, given their proximity to Lithgow Public School. The date for the removal was to be 16 December 2023 and a power outage from Endeavour Energy had been approved for that date. The lack of community consultation is completely unacceptable. That's the flyer. Secondly, we question the assumption in the flyer about the state of the trees in terms of their health and the danger they apparently pose to property and life. If this is so, why are the other healthy avenues of London plane trees of similar height and age in 3 other locations in Lithgow CBD not under consideration for removal? One is the row of London plane trees in Railway Parade. Another is in George Coates Street beside Lithgow Swimming Pool. A state government report titled Street Trees in New South Wales, Guidelines for Conservation and Management lists these in the context of assessing the value of street trees and states they have cultural, historical, scientific and aesthetic value. I'm pausing to show everyone the picture highlighted in green from that report. The third comparable row of London plane trees is in Park Parade alongside the Small Arms Factory. This is listed on the New South Wales Government legislation website under Lithgow Local Environment Plan 2014 as Avenue of Plane Trees in Park Parade and is listed under Schedule 5, Environmental Heritage, Part 1, Heritage Items, Lot 21, DP 1174289, item number 1266.
Somebody please, are you almost finished? Excuse me, are you almost finished speaking?
I'll move an extension then.
Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring, all those in favour say aye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your patience. The obvious inference is that if the avenues of plane trees in George Coates Street and Park Parade have been recognised and listed as worthy of preservation, then the Short Street trees should be treated in a similarly sympathetic spirit of conservation and respectful manner. Thirdly, I wish to thank Councillor Eric Mahoney, who took the time to meet with me in Short Street a few days before the trees were due to be removed. As a qualified arborist, the opinion he had was that the trees only needed some judicial pruning and certainly did not need removing. Eric subsequently requested a stay on their removal, which was agreed to by council, and it was his intervention that resulted in these trees being saved at this juncture. I'm advised that there is to be an independent arborist's report on the Short Street plane trees to be commissioned and presented to the council. This means that instead of an administrative decision by a council department, there can now be an informed discussion at a council meeting. This will then give councillors representing the community and members of the concerned community a chance to express their opinions. I regard the removal of these trees as of fundamental community importance, and the community must be given the opportunity to comment. I would like this to think this is self-evident in terms of a conversation. I'm of the view that we must ensure the long life of these magnificent trees I regard as nature's air conditioners, so they may continue enhancing the streetscape and providing shelter for birds and shade for people. Why do so many of us want to park in the shade? Have you asked the many parents who wait for their children outside the Lithgow Public School and park in the shade of these beautiful trees how they would feel about their removal? I can imagine the dictionary of colourful expletives would be considerably enhanced. Just think, we are lucky enough to be living in leafy Lithgow and not in sweltering Sydney, with its 50 degrees and no trees. Let's play nicely with our glorious street trees, like other cool cities such as Melbourne, London, Paris, and celebrate our magnificent inheritance. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Is anybody wishing to speak in public forum this evening that isn't registered? We'll continue on, thank you. The first item on the agenda is a notice of motion from Councillor Stephen Leslie. State and federal members invited to Lithgow City Council events. Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Ms.
I'll
Statham.
second that. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Statham. The management comment confirms that sometimes the federal member is excluded. If either of our parliamentary representatives feels that their presence is not required or helpful, then they are able to make that decision for themselves. So I move the motion, and please note the slight change from the printed version, where the second F is actually an S, is actually an is. So I move that for any Lithgow City Council event, if the state member is invited, then the federal member must also be invited.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Coleman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Statham. I was chatting with the federal member at the Rydal show. Big congratulations to him on winning the scone competition. Anyway, it was mentioned in passing that he had not been made aware of Lithgow's council recognised emergency responders event early in the year. He was disappointed. He would have liked to have been there. He would have liked to have been able to mix with the others. He would have liked to provide support and given his respects. I was unable to get there because I was unwell, but he just mentioned that to me.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anybody else wishing to speak on this?
Yes, congratulations to the person that brought this up. It's already a fact that it's happening, and I can see that the federal member is starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel to get some publicity around here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Bryce.
Would it be the other way around too, if the federal member is at something and invited to something? Is it a must that the state member be invited as well? It should be. I think it should be slightly reworded that.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor McGee.
I think that having an arbitrary rule like this is just outrageous. I think that whenever a state member or the federal member is involved in something happening in our community, they're invited to the event without fail. There's something going on, they're invited, and especially when they're involved with it. I can't see how having a must and an arbitrary rule like this, like an iron fist, can ever work, because what if someone forgets? People forget things. What do they put against the wall? Like, it's not feasible.
Councillor Ring.
Well, there's only one person that we as a council hold responsible, and that's the general manager. He's our only employee. At the end of the day, it's a matter of protocol. If an invitation goes out to one, it goes out to the other, regardless of what political party they're in, regardless of their political views. It is a matter purely of protocol. It is no different to inviting the mayor to certain functions, regardless of who the mayor is. And there will be occasions where both or either will decline. I don't see it as an issue. It's not a hard and fast rule. This is just a case of good manners. Put the invitations out. If they come, they come. If they don't, who cares? At some stage, and it's discussed later in this report in relation to LEAP, about having federal and state representatives on that committee. We need to be dealing with all levels of government regardless.
Councillor Ring, keep on topic, please.
It is, Councillor Stephen. We are talking later in this meeting about engaging with federal and state level governments. This is no different to that. We invite federal and state members. If they come, they come. If they don't, they don't.
Actually, wasn't going to. Sorry, Mayor Stephen. Actually, wasn't going to talk to this. I thought it was a pretty straight up and down. We find ourselves getting a bit stuck on fairly simple issues. I concur with Councillor Bryce. If the federal's invited, yes, the state's invited. I think it's a common courtesy. I don't feel I should talk to it even further. It's a basic courtesy to extend to federal or state. Their staff and the individuals can determine whether they've got time to attend. If they decide that they want to attend our council meetings, welcome. But I'm sure they've got other pressing issues. But I just think it's a common courtesy.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor.
Thank you. For the councillor who said that it happens anyway, well, it doesn't, because the management comment confirms that, and Councillor Coleman has confirmed that. Will I put the motion?
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. All those in favour say aye. Against? I'll call a division on that, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Bryce, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Ring and Councillor Coleman. Councillor McGee? No, are you against or for it? Against? A division will be called. Right, yeah. Yeah. Against is Councillor Bryce and Councillor McGee. No, I'm voting.
Excuse me, Councillor Stephen, are you voting for the motion?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Carried, thank you. 9.2, Notice of Motion, Councillor Marnie, Review of Council Policies and Actions relating to Street Tree Management and Verge Gardens.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Thank you, Councillor Coleman.
As part of an ongoing review of council policies, I think it's always valuable to review policies that may not be complete or have opportunities to build on them. I think both policies as referred to in the policy nature strip, medium maintenance and removal of street removal of trees from public lands, in my mind, still have considerable work to be done on them. I'm happy with the pathway that's suggested, taking it through the Operations Committee for review. I have some concerns, and I actually spoke to this when I was just Citizen Marnie a few years ago, in regard to the street tree policy. One of the shortcomings is that we've actually got an action coming out of a policy which is the policy name. So yes, there will be times that we will remove trees from public land, but there's more to a street tree policy than removal of trees. There was also issues in point 7, which I felt dealt with our general biosecurity under the Biosecurity Act and not actually dealing with street trees. If there are trees that are listed that create asthmatic or health problems, asking the resident to pay for the removal is, in my mind, not fair, and it may in fact be transferring our general biosecurity duty to an individual, which I don't think is appropriate. What the speakers spoke to tonight were what many people see in the values of a lot of our historic street tree planting. The fact that George Coates Drive appears in a New South Wales Department document on guidelines for why we should protect street tree and streetscapes is evident of the importance of that era of planting. I'm pretty convinced that the Short Street is the same era as would be the areas around Small Arms Factory. So picking them up in the Lithgow LEP and also other documents, I think we need to look at the important role that trees play in our streetscape. They play in enhancing our neighbourhoods, our livability. I know the Transformation Hub did a very interesting bit of citizen science where our hottest space found in the Lithgow urban setting was 64 degrees and Celsius, not Fahrenheit. And we had the play equipment from Hell, which sat at about, I think it was about 45 the seat for the young child to sit on. There were also clear evidence when those images where they showed significant reduction in heat from open asphalt surfaces to shaded or areas where they had verandas. So there's lots of benefits. I think there's a strong desire, and I believe it's amongst all the councillors, to see a renewal of Main Street and how we can use trees and other options in those settings. So what I'm asking for is to take it through an orderly pathway, bring it back into the Operations Committee for review. Similarly, there's a changing demographic moving into the area. I met with a young couple. One's an ambulance driver, one's a medical researcher who have built a verge garden out the front of their property, having travelled through their young adult lives through Melbourne and then into the Central Coast. The young ambulance driver had an option of getting posted in Sydney or getting a posting in Lithgow. And I believe rightly, he was working under the assumption that Lithgow and all of its rural charm and attributes made for a better place for those two young professionals to settle in. So I'd like to see policies that work with the community and evolve with the community. So I think there's a bit of work to be done on these two. I'm not here to criticise staff. I would just like us, as we work through, to review these. So I'm just looking for the council's support to take them forward into the Operations Committee for review.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Coleman.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Statham. We really have come full circle. I was speaking to a farmer on the weekend, chatting about how once it was advised to clear the land, and now how trees are an integral part of ensuring that the soil erosion is avoided. We've come full circle, providing shade and shelter for livestock. I refer to Councillor Marnie's commentary, managing urban heat islands, shade, reduce service temperatures, improve air quality. I think these are key in providing to our residents. Trees absorb water, then release it as water vapour. They provide shade for the grounds and the buildings. And every decade in Australia has been warmer than the decade before. Trees are nature's very own air conditioner. As for the Verge Gardens, it can add colour and character, improve human health and well-being. I support Councillor Marnie's notice of motion. I think it's positive, I think it's what's needed, and I congratulate him on it.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anybody else wishing? Councillor Goodwin.
Okay, Ms Statham, this motion by Councillor Mahoney makes sense. But I'd like to see if the mover would maybe change the first part of the motion to move it back to the Ops Committee prior to the review, so it can be properly discussed on the best course of action. I'd like to add in point 2, where it says remove trees, remove short street trees, and at the end also, unless there is an immediate risk to safety. And I think that's...
Councillor Marnie, are you happy with that?
Yeah, look, they're reasonable requests. The only point I'd make, Councillor Goodwin, is just that if we do have that independent arborist assessment on London plane trees and the risk elements attached to them, yes, I'm happy that we do need to look at those elements. There are times, and I've been part of organisations that have removed very mature trees, but I need to see that clear risk assessment to be brought in front, given their heritage status. But I'm very happy for it to go into the Operations Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin, and thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Ring.
I'll speak to it purely from a heritage perspective. When Schedule 5 was compiled for the LEP, 2014 LEP, it's based on very old data and very old information, and I can assure you there's a lot of sites in there that no longer exist. There have been some in the past, some desktop studies. Desktop studies don't help with heritage. It'd be like doing a desktop study of the Hoskins Church going, yes, those plants are there, without actually going there and looking. Because I can tell you, that's what's happened. There are significant items, or not really overly significant, items that have been lost, and that is not caught up in the LEP, in the schedule. And that's not a reflection of staff. It's a big job, and it's an ongoing job. And when the schedule was done, our understanding of cultural landscape from a heritage professional point of view was very much in its infancy. Tree plantings, gardens, landscape features, fencing are all part of that cultural landscape which make our community. Now, I'm not sure if the trees in Short Street have got heritage significance. That needs to be assessed. I do know that if we're going to use an arborist, it needs to be an arborist who's not associated with a business to cut down the trees. My experience in the past is you get a much more balanced view from an arborist who is much more older and experienced and is only looking at doing tree assessments. In fact, the importance, if these trees have been looked at by a developer in terms of a project, under on page 15 of 66 of chapter 4 of the Lithgow DCP, which is the heritage chapter, it states, item 2, common elements and features of streetscape character are to be identified in a streetscape analysis and incorporated into design. For example, view corridors, built form, fencing styles, extent of soft landscaping, significant trees and driveway locations. We should be doing the same with these trees. They're obviously old. They obviously have value to the community, which means they may have cultural significance, but it needs to be formally assessed. I fully support the policy recommendations that have been put up by Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee.
Yes, as the garden manager for the Hoskins Memorial Church for the past 20 years, which is a heritage garden in this city, it's also under a preservation order, a heritage preservation order for that reason, and we've never removed a tree from there. We've had trees split, like the big oak tree that split on Mort Street. That was a nearly 2 metre girth tree and split straight in half. And there was probably 25 tonne of wood in that half that hit the ground. It flattened a fully grown Acer aconitifolium, a full moon maple, to the ground. Like anything under that tree's gone. That's the importance of a qualified arborist to assess these trees, and nothing less than a level 5 would be satisfactory. They're the only ones. Jas Van Emmerik is, Gregor, sorry, Van Emmerik is level 5. However, he's associated with Agile Arbor. So, but there are a few others around. There's not many level 5s, but they are usually on the money because it's not about, they're usually about saving trees where possible. So they will guide if we can get out of pruning those trees and saving them. It's usually very expensive. Like our last tree bill was $100,000 more at the Hoskins Church for remedial pruning only. But the ongoing cost of maintaining big trees like the oaks that are halfway across.
Councillor McGee, just respect the
Address the
chair,
chair,
thank you.
yeah. The oaks that are halfway across the highway there now, you know, like they were more than that. So the process involved in pruning those oaks involved closing the highway, which added thousands of dollars more to the bill for a couple of days' work. And it sounds easy, but that's why they haven't been replaced yet, because to put the same trees in again and to have that problem, to set up the next generation for the same problem, it's got to be considered. And the Hoskins Trust takes all of these things into consideration and deliberates them at length. And it's quite a few years since that big oak split, and we're still going through that process. However, the other thing that you've got to be careful for is how far you go. If we bring in a tree preservation order, it's an unwieldy animal. There's been one here before, and I think this is far too big a subject for the Operations Committee. I think it needs to come to an information session to address councillors on exactly where we are with trees and verges, because it is a shady area. I had that, the people there very early in notice of motion from 2 years ago regarding the ability to plant trees in Hartley. And, you know, that took quite a bit of getting through. So there's areas, and I think that, you know, just Lithgow, you can't just have the town. It needs to be the whole LGA and explain where we are with verges, street plantings, the trees, where we might go with any kind of tree preservation order. You know, do we put on a size? There's just so many things involved, because the last thing we want is to get to a stage where in the Blue Mountains now, you know, for the arborists to chip on the street, and it requires a $400 permit. Now that's where you end up sometimes with these scenarios, and all of these things really need to be seriously addressed before they are set in train. So I would ask that it go to an information session, not the Operations Committee. I don't think it's a big enough committee to handle the amount of information that needs to be put forward, because it needs to be comprehensive. So if Councillor Marnie would be happy for it to go to an information session rather than the Operations Committee, and that the consultant for those London plane trees be no less than a level 5 arborist.
Madam Mayor,
Thank you, Councillor McGee.
before Councillor Marnie answers that question, could I comment on it? I believe that the Operations Committee is the place to go. Official reports are made. They're made public, unlike an information session. Minutes are taken, unlike an information session. It's the place where it certainly should go to a committee, and I think the Operations Committee is the place to go. A broader view of this whole issue is needed, and I think we have to accept that Lithgow is deficient in trees. If you take an aerial view of Lithgow, there are four properties that aren't contiguous with the mountains that you can see have a collection of at least 60-year-old trees. The first one is...
Point of order, just what is going on here? I was speaking and now Councillor Leslie is just speaking.
At the moment, Councillor Leslie, we've heard what you're saying. You've got to keep on topic. We're not talking about aerial views. We're discussing now whether or not it should go Councillor Marnie. It's up to Councillor Marnie now whether he chooses and the council staff have an information session, which will provide a longer length of time for a very interesting and worthwhile discussion. Councillor Leslie, you're saying that you wanted to come to operational rather than an information session. Is that correct?
I was also wanting to speak to the item, which is...
Sorry, but I'm still speaking to the item. Then may I move an amendment, please? Can I just move an amendment? No, I had not finished. I'd asked Councillor Marnie if he would accept.
I'll move that Councillor McGee have an extension of time.
No, I won't accept that, Councillor Leslie. I did not realise Councillor McGee was asking Councillor Marnie.
With all
I'm so
respect,
sorry.
Councillor Stephen, it has to go through the mayor, not directly the Councillor Mahoney. That's why no one knew that he was still continuing.
That's what I'm doing now. That's why I said to speak through the chair to respect the mayor. So, Councillor Marnie, McGee, you are asking to go to Councillor Marnie to actually accept the idea of an information session. Is that correct?
If he would, yes. And
Yes.
also that the arborist to consult on the London plane trees in Short Street be no less than a level 5 arborist.
Yes.
Otherwise, I move an amendment to that end.
All right. Thank you, Councillor McGee, and I do apologise for that. Councillor Marnie.
To save a whole procedural pathway, yes, you're very correct that it should be a level 5 arborist, and I do extend my respect to you for your management of that garden, which is probably the most significant horticultural feature between Bathurst and probably Mount Tomah, to be honest, outside Queen Elizabeth Park. But I don't know that the operations committee and the information session are mutually exclusive. I don't want to consume a lot of council time, but I think we need to get a recommendation coming back to the council, and my reasoning for going to the operations committee is that it will bring a recommendation back to the council. I'm just concerned as the information session purely is that. That's my only reason for going down that pathway. It might be worth bringing an expert in to talk to the committee, but I don't disagree with a lot of what you said there. So I probably still want to hold that point with the operations committee, only because it can make a formal recommendation to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Leslie, did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. And I no longer need to speak about the operations committee meeting because I thought that Councillor Marnie answered that extremely well. But we're talking about trees. We're talking about tree preservations. We're talking about areas, and I believe that Lithgow Council is deficient in trees overall. An aerial view of Lithgow Council will demonstrate that. There are 4 sites in Lithgow that have a major collection of trees areas that aren't, as I said, contiguous with the mountains. The first is Bank House. The second is certainly Hoskins Church. The third is Queen Elizabeth Park. And the fourth is 12 Kirkley Street, South Barn Fells, where I live. And why is that? Because
that's a conflict of interest, Councillor Leslie, I would think.
I doubt it.
You doubt it? Well, I'm saying I'm calling that you don't talk about your own property.
Fortunately, a conflict of interest is my responsibility. So if somebody wishes to take that on, that's where it is. But 60 years ago, my mother, my younger brother, and to a lesser extent myself, planted an enormous number of trees at that place, and it's made that property, that 4 acres, a wonderful place to be. And it's why, amongst other things, why I wanted to come back to Lithgow, because I wanted to live in that house, which after all that time became a beautiful, cool place to live in this increasingly hot climate we're living in. I think we need to look at, to broaden this whole thing, to try and get a procedure where we encourage residents, where we encourage people to actually plant trees, where we take up those sites that was mentioned at public forum, you know, Martini Parade next to Tallis. It's a shame that that whole street. There's no power lines above that on that side of the road. Why are there no trees there? Why has the council not done anything about it? It should just be axiomatic that these things happen. I congratulate Councillor Marnie on moving this thing. I'm pleased that with your indulgence, that I'm pleased that the debate has expanded slightly to look at trees more broadly. And I think that the Operations Committee is the ideal place to do it. We get a report, we get public documents, the community can see it. If they like it or dislike it, they can contact councillors or they can speak at public forum. I will certainly be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Right of reply, Councillor Marnie, please.
Thank you. There's a couple of areas that we drifted off to, which was not the intent of the motion. I'm looking at a street tree policy, which is looking at public lands trees management, which is us managing trees on our lands on behalf of the community. The tree preservation order is another complex and problematic piece of legislation or council plans. It relates to management council being an authorising officer or authorising body on the management of trees on private land. I'm not asking that we go down that pathway. I understand Lithgow had a tree preservation order previously, and they chose to remove it. Setting that decision aside, there's also issues around 1050 with the RFS legislation around clearing vegetation around fire-prone locations. So there's lots of legislation around tree management on private land. That's not where I'm travelling on this. This is about how we as a council manage both our heritage and our pathway forward as far as renewal and replacement and maintenance of trees on public lands. The fact that we do feature in some of those publications, and I suspect all of that tree plantings of a similar generation. I also accept what Councillor Goodwin was talking to, that council owns the risk, as in the council staff. So they need to be informed on risk management. I understand that, so I'm not moving away from that. Councillor Ring very importantly also spoke to heritage, and part of our history and our heritage is our treescape. So whether they're captured in the LEP or other documents, that's there to be had. On the verge planting, I'd also note that many businesses, and to Portland's credit, it's probably one of the best users of verge gardens out of all our townships. They're up and down all of the major roads within the CBD of Portland. And they soften the hard edges. They've got to be conscious of all those things. I know Mr. Edgecombe's team needs to deal with. They've got to be aware of overhead, below services, access to footpaths, access to driveways. There's a whole host of limitations, but there are many people in the business sector who are looking to ways to revitalise Main Street, and verge gardens may in fact, in a slightly different form, not unlike how it's played out in Portland, be part of that pathway forward. So I'm taking this forward with good intent for an open conversation. I'm not looking to run some harsh critique over our history of how we've done things. I think there's an opportunity there to review our policy. So I'll leave it at that, please. Mayor Stapleton.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the motion, thank you. Unanimous, thank you. (9.3) Notice of... Pardon? Oh, sorry. 9.3 Notice of motion. Councillor Eric Marnie. Councillor support to the Ironfest Makers event 2024.
Could I move this with a change? Now, I've sent through the change to Trinity.
I'm happy to second.
Do you know what the change is, councillor Coleman? All right, thank you.
Yeah. Is that available, Trinity, or would you? Yeah, okay, thank you for that. I'll just let that come up because I think it opens the conversation between staff. Rather than provide a very specific recommendation, I've asked that staff meet with the organisers and between the two parties they determine the specifics of what support council could provide to assist in the delivery of the upcoming event.
Thank you, councillor Marnie. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. Wow, Ironfest is back. Isn't that awesome? On Saturday, I attended the Ironfest in Portland promo photo shoot for the upcoming 2024 Ironfest Makers Expo to be held at the Foundations in Portland. Congratulations to all those who arranged it. It was a great day. But during the photo shoot and previously that day at the Hoskins Parish Fete, I was asked, how do those who get off the train in Lithgow get to Portland? They were concerned about that. Ironfest traditionally had been held in Lithgow, but we are fortunate that Lithgow is at the end of the train line. We have provided sponsorship to Beetlefest, so hopefully we can negotiate an appropriate support for Ironfest and let the staff deal what they need to do.
Thank you, councillor Coleman. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Bryce.
I'm glad you changed the motion, councillor Marnie, because I was concerned that bringing a report back to the 25th of March council meeting would not give enough time for the promoters to get the transport stuff out there. So I'm much happier with that. There is 20,000 set aside that we set aside last year in the budget for this. So Beetlefest was 16.5. They requested for transport all weekend to and from Wang and Portland from Lithgow. So it's the Makers is only 1 day. Is that correct? Is that only 1 day? 1 day. So the 20,000 should well and truly cover the transport out there and also anything else that they need. So I'm really pleased that that's changed. I was starting to get a bit concerned about the timeline of the 25th of March till the start of the Ironfest.
Thank you, councillor Bryce. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee.
Yes, I think it's fantastic news that the Ironfest is back, and to be in Portland, it'll be really appropriate at the Old Cement Works there, and just good news all round. The budget allowed is increased to $20,000, and very similar to the Beetlefest. To work with the organisers and the bus companies and arrange that transport over the 2 days to align with trains and everything, I can see it being a great success. It's good news all round.
Thank you, councillor McGee. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, councillor Marnie.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. Yeah, look, obviously, as a event festival, it's had a long history. It is in a reform stage, so it is going to be a modest event that's starting to rise up. The main reason I changed it, picked up on some of the things Councillor Bryce spoke to as well. I understand Mr Elwood will be working with the organisers to look at what their needs are, because their needs may not be transport, they may be a whole lot of things. So I'm just providing for that conversation to be an open conversation with Mr Elwood and the organisers, and that we can get a support package that's tailored for their needs as they come together as a group. I think it's probably in lots of ways one of our best locations, Portland. I think architecturally, I think people will love coming to Portland, those who haven't visited the area before. I think it's very exciting to have it out there. So I'll leave it in Council's and Mr Elwood's capable hands.
Thank you, councillor Marnie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. 9.4, notice of motion, Councillor Stephen Ring, rate review.
Yes, I move that.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. A seconder, thank you. Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Ring.
Thank you, Mayor Stephen. I don't know if I'm winning, but it seems like I got a lot of commentary on my report. So maybe I'm winning with the councillors. I'll talk to them all later just to see. As I stated in previous meetings, under section 3.12 of the Code of Meeting Practice, not adopted by this council, if a general manager considers a nom to have legal, strategic, financial or policy implications, he can write a report. That's how I intend to deal with this report that I've got before you. Policy. On page 12 of 75, the administration comment, the first sentence clearly supports my claim that council always blames increase in land values. In the notice of motion I brought to the council, I've acknowledged the role of land values and the SRB. But management response was, it has not been a decision of council. It's in the management report. So who prepared the report to IPART? I don't know. Was the rate burden applied equitably and fairly to the management? Once again, go to the management report, page 10. In any category or subcategory where there is a large variation between the lowest and highest land values, the end result will be winners and losers. This does not result in a fair and equitable distribution of the rate burden, nor does it reflect capacity to pay. Yet we claim in the revenue policy, we state, it is to ensure that rates are levied in a fair and equitable manner. Clearly, that's not the case. And the revenue policy should be amended to reflect the true nature of rate increases. Now, I'm not asking that for a system which is uneven, spread across everyone. It can't be done because of land values. However, the application of this rate increase with the significant land values that occurred have resulted in a perverse result in that we have businesses that have had rates double. An additional $8,000 a year they've got to find. Some 6,000. This is what I want looked at. The perverse result of the rate increase. Legal. At no point in my notice of motion did I claim lot size was a determining factor in the development of subcategories. What I was doing, what I am doing, is highlighting the issues, including Marangaroo in the Lithgow residential category. An area that has properties in excess of 4,000 square metres will always have greater land values than an area where lot sizes start at 200 square metres. And as a consequence, the rate burden will be higher. But my proposals are consistent with the Local Government Amendment Act 2021. Councils are allowed to set separate residential rates in contiguous urban areas. And yes, it does apply in respect to services. But if we actually went and did a review of the services offered to all our residents, we'd find significant disparities across the LGA. It's not a great system. But we're also allowed to have subcategories that better reflect the services and needs of our community. Financial. Well, there's no reason this work can't be done or expedited now. In a report later on, in the quarterly report, it makes it very clear that there's been $1.4 million saving this year in salaries. That funding can be used to expedite the work that I'm requesting. In addition, there's $750,000 in the SRV for governance and review of governance work. I don't see this as being unrealistic. Strategic. Page 17 of 75 of this report, it states, the rates and revenue manager is of the opinion that the current categories and subcategories for residential and businesses are sufficient at the present point in time. I'd just like to remind councillors that under the Local Government Act 1993, section 223, role of the governing body, section F, it is our role to determine and adopt a rating and revenue policy and operational plans. It's not up to the staff to make this decision. That is up to this governing body to decide on what it wants to do. Now, I'm not asking for radical change. I'm asking to tweak the system that is currently there. It is not fair to many people. It is not fair because the whole rating system is based on this ridiculous claim that if you have land of a certain value, you have capacity to pay more. Well, that's not true. People who buy land when they're younger and then benefit from increase value will end up paying more when they can least afford it. And let's be honest, when it comes to rates on older people, and if you own a property, you can defer your rates and have the rates taken out of your estate when you pass. We've got an ageing population. We don't need that. What we need is a rating system which tries to level the playing field a little bit. We will have winners and losers, but not to the extent that we have now. And in terms of rate harmonisation, I talked about this when the rates were first brought, when I first came back to council. In 2008, 2009, this council administration at that time lowered the ad valorums for Wallerawang and Portland because their land values had gone up. Prior to that, they were all the same. CBD businesses in Main Street are struggling. The rate structure does not reflect their needs or their impact on our services. Businesses in Inch Street or larger businesses, their impact on our resources is significantly higher. We need to tweak the system. It's not fair by any means, and I'm not saying it is. And with the Local Government Amendment Act of 2021, the government's brought in 6 to 8.
I'll move an extension of time.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman.
Yeah, happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. All those in favour say aye. Thank you.
Yes, I won't be too much longer. Basically, the Local Government Amendment Act brought in several items. 4 have already come in. The others will be brought in by, I forget the word, but the government will bring them in due course. And we need to be looking at and making our system as fair as it possibly can be, acknowledging it is a flawed system. And this has nothing to do with IPART or going after the rates. This is purely about how we apply them and whether or not we can apply the system more fairly. Thank you, Councillor Statham. I'm finished.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you. I agree with a lot of what Councillor Ring says. And if I can give an example of rate between Lithgow and Bathurst, rural rates. We got a property in Portland. It's about 120 acres. It's about $1,900 a year for the rates. We got one double that in Bathurst, and it's $1,300. And my brother got one in Mudgee that is 300 acres, and that's $1,100. So there's no doubt about it that it's affecting people's ability in rural, and it's got to be fair for small business, as he said in Main Street, and that can afford. It's no use having a place if people can't afford to start up business or carry on a business. So we just got to have a good look at it, and if it needs to be tweaked a bit, well, I agree with doing that.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Goodwin.
Ms. Statham, I've read the extensive report from Councillor Ring. He's put a lot of time and effort into the report. But I'd like to ask the administration if they would comment, please, on Councillor Ring's first 3 points. It may assist me before I ask for an amendment.
Point of order. The administration have already commented on those points in their response or reply on my notice of motion. It is not
Councillor
relevant.
Ring, I would like to hear them again. I didn't know this was going to occur, but I'm happy to hear Councillor Goodwin. So I'll make a ruling. I will accept Councillor Goodwin's comments, thank you, and questions to the governing body. So I've rejected your point of order, and Councillor Goodwin, you will now, Mr General Manager, will speak to your 3 questions. Thank you.
So I think the clarification or the additional commentary you were seeking was in relation to the first 3 points. Well, in relation to the first point, I think the council and the public needs just to look at the IPART report, which is the Independent Pricing Regulatory Tribunal. They made a determination report. It's on our website, it's on IPART's website, and that deals extensively with the regard that the council had for capacity to pay and financial hardship. And the council, in crafting the SRV, certainly acknowledged that there would be some financial hardship for some people. That's unavoidable, and it's acknowledged, particularly with our socio-economic circumstances. But IPART acknowledges that the crafting of the SRV was very acute and receptive to that limited capacity to pay. By way of example, we increased the pensioner rebate and also recouped as much as 50% of the rate increase from just a few categories and moved it off residences and farmland. In relation to item number 2, the farmland categorisation policy, the council has already resolved or confirmed a position of developing a farmland categorisation policy, and that will come to the council. However, it's a policy that requires detailed investigation and, again, delicate crafting. Fundamentally, what we want to do is ensure that it doesn't have perverse outcomes, that the community are deeply engaged. We want to ensure that only legitimate farmland is within the farmland categorisation or category, and not other businesses, and so move those out. But it's a significant process, and it needs to be delicately moved through, and it needs deep engagement with the council. In terms of point number 3, the council, as a matter of course, in adopting its integrated planning documents for next year, and as a feature of that, the revenue strategy will be caused to look at the current rating categories and the construct of those categories, and see if there is any additional work that can be done to achieve greater equity and fairness. On this score, the council already has a policy position of continuing with rates harmonisation, and as I said, the farmland categorisation process will also, as a feature of setting next year's budget, the council will need to look at the distribution of the base and ad valorem between those categories again. So this is work that the council needs to do as a matter of course. There's a briefing arranged for the 8th of April and the 10th of April, because it is at the meeting of the 22nd of April that the council will need to adopt these policies. So what I'm saying is, in relation to item 1, had a regard for capacity to pay and responded to that. There's current farmland categorisation process in train, and there is a review of rating categories and the amount of revenue that's sourced from each of those categories, and all of this will come to the council. There will be, I wouldn't often use the word, but it will be impossible to deal with these matters before a March meeting or for a March meeting with any maturity. And in fact, we'll be immensely challenged to meet any of the timelines to develop an operating plan and a budget ready for the meeting of the 22nd of April if we drift down other paths beyond that which this council has already adopted.
With all respect, I'd just like to clarify that point 1 is the only point that requires any information coming back to council by March. And that should be able to be done very simply by the staff.
Mr. General Manager.
I've said what I've said, and it will be difficult to deal with these matters, and we're on a course, and the council has directed the administration to continue to look at rates harmonisation, to look at categories. As elected council, you need to look at the base and the ad valorem, and you need to be comfortable. The right trajectory with the resources we have is to prepare this information for a briefing that's been arranged for the 8th of April and the 10th of April as a second briefing to go around again. And if more are required, there'll be more briefings and more engagement to get more instruction. But there are inputs. We need to develop policy, look at the options, run complex scenarios with base and ad valorem. There's an infinite array of scenarios that can be run. All of this needs to be brought back to the council, and then the council needs to choose which path. We're on the right trajectory is my advice to the council, to spend the time to get ready for an 8th and a 10th of April briefing, and then a 22nd of April decision of the council.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Goodwin.
Okay, in saying that, can I make an amendment to Councillor Ring's recommendations?
Councillor Ring accepts your amendment. Yes, Councillor Goodwin.
I don't have to accept his amendment.
Councillor Goodwin.
I'd like to make an amendment that the council maintain its current focus on continuous improvement and refinement of the rating system, acknowledging that the council will soon receive advice from the administration and they will at that stage determine any required changes.
Point of order, that's a direct negative. That's the exact opposite to what's...
Please
No,
allow...
excuse me, it's a point of order. It is a direct negative. You cannot put up a direct negative as an amendment. Thank you.
I will determine... Keep going, please, Councillor Goodwin.
That was my...
Well, I can't deal with the point of order until I see exactly what Councillor Goodwin says.
No, you need to deal with the point of order. The point of order is called, I have stated what it is, it's in the code of meeting practice, and you need to deal with it.
Well, the more information I get...
No, Councillor Statham.
Well, I won't agree with you then, thank you.
Well, good, then I'll move a motion of dissent.
Well, you can move that, please.
In that you cannot move a negative amendment to what is there. That's correct, isn't it? Negative. A direct negative to what has been put for council. This is a direct negative and you cannot put that up. It is not legal. It's your turn to debate.
It's not a direct negative, I don't feel.
It is a direct
I feel
negative.
it's more...
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I feel it's...
Apologies, it's your turn to talk.
It is my turn to talk. Thank you, Councillor Ring. I haven't heard what Councillor Goodwin was going to continue to say. I have no idea what he was going to say. So I need to listen because I will have to be one of the people that vote. And I want to know exactly what Councillor Goodwin's amendment, he's entitled to put up an amendment, and I would like to hear the amendment. If I don't agree with it, I won't accept it. And the councillors will know that it's not a direct negative. But it is a direct negative. He will not get the amendment through. So I'll just wait until this goes up onto the screen. Thank you. I won't take very long to make my mind up. It's absolutely not a direct negative. In fact, it's very supportive. It says that the council maintain its current focus on continuous improvement and refinement of the rating system, acknowledging that the council will soon receive advice from administration and they will at this stage determine any required changes of the year ahead and beyond. So it's a very supportive, so I won't accept that, Councillor Ring.
Before we do that, I've moved the motion of dissent.
Absolutely,
it needs to be put to the vote.
I'll put it to the vote. Just wait till Councillor Goodwin comes in. Thank you. You don't need a seconder?
No.
That's correct. on you. I've accepted that is a continuous improvement and refinement that is positive. It's not a negative. So we're now going to put the motion of dissent. All those in favour of Councillor Ring's motion of dissent? Councillor Ring has failed in his motion of dissent. Goodwin, could you please continue? Or is that's your response? Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor McGee, would you like to speak to that?
I would.
Goodwin.
I support
Councillor
this
Goodwin,
amendment.
would you like to continue to speak on that? Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor Statham, I've made some notes. This minimisation of the rates will be coming back to council in April. We can certainly sit down and discuss it at that point in time, which is probably the most appropriate time we need to do that. I don't see how this is going to affect anything that Councillor Ring is going to do. It could come back at a later stage if he needs to. So that's what I'll put forward.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor McGee.
Yes, I can't support the original motion in that, for all of its specifics, at the very end, and even in the first recommendation in Part A, to not be specific about the significantly higher than 27%. Is it 5% that Councillor Ring's getting at, 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%, as he mentioned? So I think that a bit of clarity in those things, but I think that with what's in train in the next couple of months for April, I think that we have a good look at that. And also I think that if Councillor Ring was to perhaps look at individual applications for people, to actually some avenue for people to bring about, instead of hearsay, to bring their case and have some kind of portal, because I also think that to identify numbers of properties just significantly above the 27.7%, that's a lot of work. That could be most of the LGA. So it really does need to be refined, I think, and so therefore I support the amendment.
Yes, I'd like to speak against the amendment, if I may, Councillor Statham.
Certainly, Councillor Ring.
The intent of my report was to effect change. And in the council, and councillors had actually read the commentary from the administration, which is clear they didn't.
Excuse me, you don't know that. I won't accept that at all.
Okay, well then possibly we've got a 10th councillor who was invited to enter the debate.
Beg your pardon?
I said obviously we have a 10th councillor who was invited to enter the debate by Councillor Goodwin, because the commentary answered all those questions. There was no need for the General Manager to be brought into the debate. He is not a councillor. He has provided his commentary. That is it.
Who's that who provided
the General Manager.
I've ruled on that anyway, Councillor Ring.
Oh, that's fine. At the end of the day, change is needed, and as for specifics, a number of the councillors in this room, including Councillor McGee, have been sent emails from residents. Councillor Goodwin have been sent emails. I chose not to target individuals and their business in council. I chose to take a rather broad approach, but it's up to this council. It is the governing body. That's all I've got to say.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Bryce?
I support that we look at the rates and how it affected people. The only issue I had with Councillor Ring's request was, hang on, let me find it, was point 1. It says, identify the number of properties at which the rate rise has caused undue financial. This would not be a 5-minute job. This would be, I'm not asking you a question. This would not be a hard job. My rates went up more than 27.7%. So, did it cause me undue financial hardship? That's between me and my bank account. But the fact is, it'd be more than 5 minutes to do that job. I think putting a timetable of a March council meeting for something that important will not give this administration time. Everyone, if you are suffering from undue hardship, you would need to be approached by the council, or you approach the council. March is not going to give us enough time. Another month is not enough time to get that done. So I'm happy to see that we are meeting on the 8th and 10th of April about that rate harmonisation and all that sort of stuff. Then it brings to the 22nd of April meeting. By then we should have a better idea of what's going on. I just felt that the March timetable was just too tight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Cobb.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. I'm not supporting this amendment. As far as I'm concerned, it's a direct negative, but that's my opinion. Councillor Ring has basically stated very clearly in his recommendation that administration prepare a report for the March council meeting. Perhaps he could be flexible on that timetable. Then it states in the second point, prepare a draft and then do a review. He's asking for things to be reported on, to be drafts reported and to be reviewed. And quite frankly, it's already started in the commentary. I mean, in the commentary, which is about 6 pages, is basically a report starting from, well, they've already started the report as far as I can see. So I don't have a problem with the original recommendation and I won't be voting for the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. I thank Councillor Ring for the detailed analysis he's put to this. I think in his conclusion he poses a lot of very important questions, and I concur with him. I'd like to see these answered. As someone who supported the rate increase, one of my concerns was if we end up with perverse outcomes where people are considerably above 27.7. I think in my mind, we've got a role of due diligence to review to ensure we clearly understand that. I think there's very clear specifics that Councillor Ring's looking to bring into this conversation and inform our decision as councillors. Perhaps the wording around undue financial hardship may be better placed with percentile bands as far as how far above it is. I have had people come to me with significant increases, not their 29.2, but well beyond that. I think that gives us clarity around it. I think also importantly raises the issue of viable farmland into the future. And I think there's some very good preliminary analytics going on there from Councillor Ring. I think it's a critical part of our economic future. It's also a critical part of food security in our region, and I also thank him for that. And I also think that we may well need flexibility in our rating subcategories. So I'm seeing a proposal that's bringing forward. It challenges us about a decision we've made, and it's asking the administration for the details so that we can review how effective we've been in that decision. Also, I think it's a very important discussion that's had around the importance of both tourism economy, accommodation, and also low socioeconomic housing options, which come through places like caravan parks. And yes, I'm the broken record on this, but it's broken and it's there. We haven't got a housing strategy. We don't know how we're dealing with, as far as a decision with those lower socioeconomic housing opportunities. If our rating acts as a tool that potentially excludes that out of the system, that's a problem. So, and then we have, and I've never agreed with this, and I've stated my position against it all the way through. The land values do not equate to people's capacity to pay. Anyone that's got an intergenerational family living in this town and can talk to a grandmother or a grandfather who bought a house in Extension Estate in the 50s, I suggest that the value of it is significantly greater in proportion to their current income. So there's some things that get pinned up that don't necessarily match up. So I see this as a really important piece of governance, challenging our thinking, challenging our decision making. I won't support the amendment. I'm happy to support Councillor Ring's motion. I understand the point of negotiation is around the timeline. But the content, I'm very happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else wishing to speak to the amendment? Councillor Goodwin, right of reply.
Mayor Statham, all I've got to say is the review has already started. We need to let the
So,
administration.
point of order, right of reply, we've got to put the amendment first.
This is the amendment.
Excuse
sorry.
me. Yes, it's a right of reply, Councillor. Thank you.
Apologies, Councillor Goodwin.
Thank you.
Councillor Goodwin, continue. Thank you.
All I wanted to say is the review's already started. We need to let the administration do their job and bring it back to us in April.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. I'll put the Councillor Goodwin's amendment. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring, Councillor Leslie and Councillor Marnie, a division, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Statham. Against, Councillor Marnie, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Ring and Councillor Coleman. That's carried, thank you. The amendment becomes a motion. Councillor Good.
No, I'd like to be put.
Put the motion then, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Statham, Councillor Bryce, Councillor Ring, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee. Against. Councillor Leslie, thank you. And Councillor Statham. Against is Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring and Councillor Marnie. That was lost, thank you. It's carried, I beg your pardon. Yes. Page 19, 10, Administration Reports, 10.1, Caring for Our Community. Somebody move this?
I'll
thank
move
you.
it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Yes. Just for the viewers at home and people that don't have an agenda in the audience, it's the matter DA 200/23, the 26th of the 2nd, 2024, 67 Bridge Street, Lithgow, internal alterations and additions to the Union Theatre. Councillor Bryce, have a seconder, thank you. Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce.
This has been a long time coming. We got an announcement that the kitchen and alterations were going to be done quite a while back. It's good to see now that DA's in front of us, and it is a great venue, and I'm pleased that these alterations are going ahead.
Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodwin.
No, I don't need to say anything, Mayor Statham.
Anybody else wishing to
Yes,
comment?
thank you,
Councillor
Councillor
Ring?
Statham. I have 3 questions for you to the administration.
Certainly.
Question 1, item 11, page 17 of 23 of the DA assessment refers to a passive grease arrestor, minimum size 1,000 litres, and pipes to be HDPE or equivalent. The drawings not show the location of the grease arrestor, nor could I find any discussion about its location in the report. Does its installation impact on the heritage significance of the site?
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Mr. Matt Trapp will speak to that. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. Can I just get that's the second part of that question, Councillor Ring?
Will it have, does its installation impact on the heritage significance of the site? Because the drawings do not show where it's going to be placed.
No, it shouldn't impact on any of the heritage work on the site or impact on any of the heritage assessment of the site, I suppose. It will be downstream of any current plumbing drainage and be the last point prior to connection to the existing infrastructure.
No, thank you. Second question, is 1,000 litres adequate and fit for purpose?
Yes, it is. That's the minimum under the guidelines based on what that kitchen would be doing and the style of the premises.
Thank you. Question 3, item 11B, referenced as the use of HDP piping or equivalent. How is this consistent with council administration requiring existing food outlets to upgrade existing drainage pipes to HDP at considerable cost? Yes, there appears to be inconsistency in what council is doing for its own and what it is applying to people in the real world.
Mr Trapp, thank you.
So the installation of the HDPE is largely based on temperature and what facilities the kitchen would be utilising. Being a commercial kitchen, certain temperatures coming out of different fixtures, being your dishwasher, any of the other appliances that would be there, hence why it's been placed in there. HDPE is probably the second last step prior to going to some sort of steel type pipe work to be able to handle that. Under the Plumbing and Drainage Act and through the Local Government Act as well and EP&A Act, when a DA comes in, this is our time to be able to either retrofit or alter any of this pipe work to bring it up to the latest standards, which is what we've tried to do under these conditions. Bring it in line with the Plumbing Code of Australia as well as Plumbing and Drainage Act 2011.
I thank you for that.
Mr Trapp.
Application of the building codes is performance-based, not prescriptive. So for any establishment, it would depend on the temperature of the water being released. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Anyone else wishing to speak on this? Right of reply, Councillor Bryce? No. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. I will record that as a division, thank you. Yes. Hands up again, thank you. Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Marnie, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring and Councillor Leslie. Thank you. Item 10.2.2, 26th of the 2nd, 2024, tender evaluation, replacement of the Charles Street Road Bridge at Rydal. Could I have somebody move this, please?
Happy to second.
Who moved that? Councillor O'Connor, was it?
No, Councillor
Councillor Marnie.
And I seconded.
Councillor O'Connor seconded.
No, Councillor Ring.
Can somebody down on the floor please tell me who seconded it, because it's too hard to hear up here? Councillor Ring. Okay, Councillor Marnie, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very good to see the continuation of the Country Bridge replacement program going on, and also that we're working with our small communities such as Rydal. And I thank the staff for their work on this. I've just got a couple of questions. Just given the historic nature and character of Rydal, I just wanted to clarify a couple of things at the end. Obviously, there's that use of looking at using different concrete colours to soften off that. But there was also the timber structure around the bridge. What's the final aesthetic look of the bridge? Are we using either the original timbers, or are we using another material in the same format of the timbers?
Mr Edgecombe, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, my understanding is that the bridge is your standard concrete modular style structure, but if there are any means to innovate in terms of aesthetics, I would need to seek some further clarification from the contractor as to whether they were included in the tender.
All right. Thank you for
Edgecombe.
that. Could I ask just a couple of other questions just while I've got you? Is there any intention to seal the approaches to the bridge? My apologies, a series of questions not on notice.
That's okay, Mr Edgecombe.
Through you, Mayor Statham, absolutely. It's standard practice that you seal the approach to any causeway or bridge to solve any impending erosion problems that you might have. But given the time between the tender, the approval for this funding and the tender that was run due to resourcing constraints, prices have naturally increased and the available contingency has decreased. So as they're funded by the same program, our intent is to seek any project savings from the other bridge that was funded under the program to seal the approaches for both.
Okay, and with your indulgence, Mayor, just one last question. Terrific sort of result for linking the western side of Rydal to the eastern side. Is there any plans to look at a footpath to link the east and west? And that's my final question.
Really, this, Councillor Marnie, is just about the bridge. So I
Okay.
think
All
that's
right.
for another
I'll-
time, thank
I'll
you.
leave-
I accepted the ceiling
Yep.
either side. I thought it was a great question, but I
Okay.
think that should be put to the Operations Committee or
Okay,
something like
thank
that.
you.
Could I ask a question?
Anybody else wishing to
Yeah, I'm
speak?
seconder, so.
Councillor Ring.
Look, I think it's a good outcome for the community, and my understanding from reading the report that is there is surplus money from all the other projects. It will be redirected to the ceiling prior to and after the bridge that goes in. I think there's $20,000 to $30,000 in surplus or contingency within the existing budget, and as long as we don't chew that up, then we can use that moving forward. I'm also very happy with Central Industries getting the job. They did a great job down on the bridges going down to Capity, and I think it's good when we can see local businesses stepping up and doing this sort of work.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Leslie, thank you.
Yes, if I could ask a question. In the confidential evaluation score sheet, there's a figure there that is substantially different from the recommendation in point 2. Now, I can find the recommendation in point 2 on page 24 of 75, but I can't work out how. Perhaps I'm misreading it. I'm not, but I can't work out how the figure in the evaluation ends up as the figure in the recommendation. I was wondering if I could get clarification on that.
Thank you, Councillor Lesser. Mr General Manager, thank you.
Through you, Mayor. Councillor Leslie, we wouldn't be able to go into a discussion about the confidential items, so a proper course of action, if you need that clarification ahead of making the decision, would be for this matter to be deferred. We can go into closed session of council. Basis would be that there's a matter in the confidential attachment which you wish to discuss and seek clarification, and then when the confidential session closes, we could deal with this report.
I appreciate that. That's why I haven't mentioned any figures, and they even just different. But if someone would just say there's a sensible explanation for this, I'd be happy to accept that, and then later on just get that sensible explanation.
Through you, Mayor Statham, this is a standard template that we use for all projects, so I assume that I'm not completely aware of the specific figure that you're referring to, but like I said, it is a standard procedure, so we can take this offline and talk about it.
Could I perhaps just approach the front table and just point out the figure I'm talking about?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The General Manager has...
In that case, we'll move that later, either now or later I'll move that this matter go into confidential committee at the end of this council meeting.
Well, no, I'll do it now. Thank you, Councillor Leslie. So to the people in the pub... Yeah. Is there a seconder for that motion?
I'm happy to do it now. I'm sorry to the people in Gurry.
Yes,
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Apologies to the general public that have taken your time out tonight to come to this.
It'll take 2 minutes.
There is a statement that I'd like to read. I want somebody to move. We go into a closed council. Thank you.
I'll
Thank
move
you,
that.
Councillor Bryce. Councillor Ring. All those in favour say aye. Thank you.
We just have another statement that needs to be read before we move.
Thank you for being patient. The General Manager now will read out an article that perhaps should have been read out just before you left the chambers. Thank you.
Oh, yes, just to put on the record, the council resolved around 8:55 to enter into a closed session of the council. The reason for that was there was commercial information of a confidential nature relevant to the report that the council was dealing with, which needed to be discussed. The council dealt with that and resolved that the information be received.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. We'll continue with the debate. Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor O'Connor?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to ask, is there been geotech done on the where the bridge is going and the lead up to the roads? And if there is been geotech and we know the ground, why is not these jobs as a lump sum so that there can be no more extras in all these jobs so that it's clear how much the job is going to cost before it starts? And it's an easy thing to do.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Mr. Edgecombe, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. So yes, absolutely. Geotech and the environmental Part 5 studies have been completed and they formed part of the tender package so that we could get the most accurate quotes we possibly could. We wanted to make sure we provided as much information to the potential tenderers as early as we possibly could. With respect to the lump sum contracts, they still have for variation that a contract of separable or a price of separable portions does. You can still vary one way or the other. The benefits of a lump sum contract is what we've just seen through the questions in confidential session. It does allow us, if we're close to the tender, to consider what aspects of the scope we might want to remove or change to bring that quote under budget. So there are benefits to both methods. In this particular process, we chose to have those separable portions, but for some others, we do use lump sum costing, for example, for road reconstruction projects.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Marnie. Right of reply, Councillor Marnie.
No, thank you. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. The tender, should we have a division?
No.
10.2.3, contracts for the asset management sewer pipes.
Happy to move that.
Sorry, who was that?
Councillor Marnie, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie and Councillor Bryce. Councillor Marnie.
Thank you to the staff for their continuing work on these.
Could you please put your microphone on? Thank you, Councillor Marnie.
My apologies. Thank you for the staff for their work on this. Again, it's a very important improvement in our asset management, particularly of our sewer systems. I've just got a couple of questions, if I could, for you, Mayor. I understood we're investing in equipment to undertake smoke testing. I'm assuming this is to buy additional capacity beyond what our staff can do. So I just wanted to clarify that, please.
Mr. Trapp, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. Yeah, that's exactly what this is. This is to supplement the work that our team in reticulation aren't able to get to as part of our business as usual, I suppose. We try to go through and do this ourselves on occasion, but our team can be caught up in other things, whether it's main breaks, other chokes and that sort of stuff. So these contracts are to supplement their work and continue working on the assets to keep them up to a maintainable standard.
Okay, all right. And again, thank you to the team for the work on this and moving this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Bryce, thank you.
Happy to see this is continuously moving forward. The sewer works, since we've had so many issues with sewers over the years, and it's also happy to see that it's a joint organisation was used for the procurement. Thanks.
Any councillor wishing to speak on this? Thank you, Councillor Ring.
One is a statement, and that in the executive summary, it's very misleading. And I believe this is just an error on part of the staff. It talks about Part 7, tendering of the local, Part 7, which is tendering of the local government general regulation, having a financial limit to go to open tender. It doesn't. I assume the author of this got confused with council's internal delegations. Council can choose how it goes to tender, open or selective. It's up to council. Secondly, I have a question for you, Mayor Stephen, to the administration. On page 11 of the confidential report, it states a price of $95,983. No, there's only, for Lithgow, well...
If it's a confidential report,
well, it's
Councillor
not.
Ring, you shouldn't have repeated any figures in that report.
Well, actually, it's not, because this report fails to tell anyone what the contract value is. This is my point.
You could say that without mentioning any number.
Well, the number has to be reported, because I'm not going to approve...
You report it in a confidential situation.
No, we're going to approve this, and we need to know what we're approving. Yeah, if you could, Mr. Trapp.
Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Staten. So this is only to award to a panel of contractors where, as the report states, that Interflow have come out as a successful tenderer for those. Whether council takes them up using the remaining budget for this year is a decision to be made at a later date or under the procurement guidelines that we have. They've submitted to us a schedule of rates, and based on that and their other submissions, they've come out as the top tenderer. So there has been no package or budget amount sent to them to say that, yes, that's the work we want to do. It will be, as I said to Councillor Marnie's response, it is to supplement the work that we do currently.
I appreciate that, but that is not clear in the report. It looked to me as if we were being asked to approve a contract. So I'm assuming that if we approve this now, it'll have to come... Oh, no, it won't, because it's under the delegation, so it doesn't need to come back to council, correct? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trapp. Anyone else wishing to speak tonight? Right of reply. Thank you, Councillor Marnie.
Just briefly, could I ask one more question? Just with the 5% management fee, is that a net saving you would expect that we would have got if we would have paid greater if we went alone, or if that
Mr.
question
Trapp,
makes
thank
sense?
you.
So in that the fee that we would use, or we would pay to the JO for managing the process, you mean?
Yeah.
I think it would be pretty much negligible either way, with the time spent by admin staff to create the tender packages and then put it out there is a considerable amount of time. So I think it would end up being pretty square both ways.
Okay, thank you. All right,
I'm
happy to put that, but thank you for the answer.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Thank you. The 26th of the 7th, 2024 sewer management and response to notice of motion. Somebody move this, thank you.
I'd like to move that.
Thank you,
with
Councillor.
a new motion.
Excuse me, with a new motion.
Yes,
Thank
Councillor
you. What
Stephen.
is your new motion,
The staff
Councillor
have
Ring?
that. That council allocate $154,000 from the sewer funds for the installation of up to 200 sewer reflux valves immediately. Leave the immediately off.
Can I have a second to thank you?
Yeah, look,
Councillor
I'm happy
Marnie.
to second that.
Councillor Ring.
Yep, that's a good report, but we've been talking about raw sewage flowing into people's houses for years. It was a topic of conversation in the last council. Reports that are not leading to positive actions are just not acceptable. We are not a third world country. We've all received an email of a woman who suffered raw sewage pumping back into her house and is costing her considerable money. I haven't dealt with that yet. I believe other councillors will, but it is not acceptable in our community. Now, I chose 200. It could be significantly less, it might be a bit more, but we need to do the urgent ones now. And it may come in cheaper. We need to take positive action on this and show the community. This buys us time in dealing with the longer term problems. No one should have to have raw sewage coming back up into the house and wrecking their houses. It's just not acceptable. We are not a third world country. So I would hope that all councils would accept this. I don't think it's unreasonable. 154, we might send 70,000. We might spend a bit much, but let's at least get those properties that are at greatest risk and have had greatest damage. Let's help them now, not in 10 years' time.
Councillor Marnie?
I'm happy to support Councillor Ring's motion. I think what it does provide for staff is a guidance as far as an outer edge of the budget. I concur with Councillor Ring that having raw sewage appearing into people's properties, and yes, there's a woman recently obviously had significant impacts on her possessions as well as being able to live at that location. I'm not going into a pathway of who was at fault in that situation, but that's the consequences of what happens when raw sewage enters your property. So as a benchmark or a standard of service, I believe we'd all be in some agreement that having sewage returning into the property is not a benchmark of acceptable standard of service. I appreciate a lot of the thinking that's happening as part of this report. I have slightly different views on a couple of elements of it. Certainly, I think the integration of stormwater management and sewer management is critical, and those red spots and hot spots in the lower section of Extension Estate and Western Main Street, that takes away highly contaminated stormwater, floodwater, which is containing high levels of sewage. Though I would still argue that it's happening in elevated locations as high up as Wrights Road. And so it's not altogether an interplay between the stormwater, but you rightly identified that as a significant risk. I'm not convinced about the groundwater interplay, just given the hydraulic input. Yes, it may have incremental impacts, but I still see stormwater as a critical component. Whilst this might not be palatable sort of general conversation, I also appreciate that you've dealt with the persistent issue of non-disposable, disposable wipes. It's one of the main issues causing chokes. I work in natural streams in my day job. It's not unusual to end up with raw sewage coming down what appears to be a fairly pristine system. And you go back to those choke points, and we've got manhole covers overflowing with raw sewage. So it's not peculiar to our area. I certainly want to particularly applaud Mr. Trapp and also Mr. Edgecombe in working together to get an integrated approach to this bigger issue. So there is a lot in this report that fills me with some optimism that we're heading in the right direction. But Councillor Ring rightly points out that we need to give guidance to the staff as far as a budgetary outlier. If these people are being impacted by raw sewage returning to their property, I suggest we either do one of two things. We go down the pathway of what Councillor Ring's suggesting, or we give them a refund on their water and sewage rates, because I don't believe we're actually delivering the service at an acceptable level.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes, Councillor Leslie.
Doesn't the council already have this in the budget to implement this this program?
Good question, Councillor Leslie. Mr. General Manager.
Council has an existing budget and an existing program of works, and that's ongoing. So I think as the report speaks to, and Mr. Trapp could add more, we're doing sewer relining, smoke testing, and amplification works of sewer pump stations and the like. The big piece of work is a hydraulic assessment of the locality, particularly around Cup Row and Enfield Streets. And that hydraulic assessment will really pull, as I understand, all of this together and give us the key strategy of what are the most important things to do first, second, third and fourth. So I'd see the sewer reflux work as being an additional piece that's added to that work that's already ongoing. Just while I'm speaking also though, if I could just provide another point of clarification, just to put on the record, if councillors of mine to vote this money for that purpose tonight, this decision will need to be supported by a subsequent and very specific resolution of the council to determine which properties in particular the public money is directed towards. The council cannot spend public money on private property, and there are issues of probity there, so there'll have to be a subsequent report brought to the council, and as a feature of that report I would see that the council would have to take decisions about who gets funded and who doesn't, and the time frame for delivery of such sewer surcharge works and the like.
So,
Thank you, Mr General Manager.
if I could follow up, just so specifically, there is no fund, allocated fund at the moment for the sewer reflux valves. That's a question.
Mr Trapp, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, there's no package of work currently for sewer reflux valves under the operational plan that was adopted last year. That wasn't a feature of it. So yeah, this would be in addition to the current program of works.
Mayor Statham.
And sorry, and just to add to that, and that's because the sewer reflux valves, as I understand, will be on private property, so they're not works that council would normally do. They'll come into the frame of consideration with the hydraulic assessment, but even there, in relation to this resolution, the council will need to turn its mind in terms of how, having installed the sewer reflux valve, who's responsible for maintaining those sewer reflux valves. So there are, sounds boring, but there are considerations to work through with this. But if the council is of a mind to vote this money, the officers will immediately turn their attention to that and bring all this information back.
Yeah, Mayor Statham, if I may,
Thank you, Mr General Manager.
if I could just, sorry, I just wanted to follow on what the General Manager said. Could we add an additional point that reflects what he just said? And that is that the council brings back a report to a future meeting on how the funds would be applied.
Well, if I may add there, a future meeting could be March, April, May. The budget is done in June. Would it not be wise to put it in the budget in June if we're going to wait on several months to get the report, or a month to get the report?
Make it for March then. Well, make it April. That might be easier for the staff.
Councillor Money, do you accept that?
I'll just make one comment. The General Manager's very right in what he's saying. There is very explicit section of the Act in expending public money on private land, with the exception of when it's put out for 28 days or it's part of a program. So there is a pathway to do it, but it is a good point that the General Manager has made, and I'm happy to accept what Councillor Ring is suggesting.
Mr General Manager?
Can I seek the council's indulgence to go with the original motion that was floated in terms of a future report? And what we would then do is utilise the operations committee to bring the information there, and we would let us have a look after tonight's meeting in terms of the programming of this relative and the work that needs to be gotten through relative to the existing commitments we have in the sewer and water program. Bring that to an operations committee, and the council can determine if they want it brought back to, a meeting sooner than can the administration says can practically be scheduled. But I'm in the council's hands.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Councillor Ring, are you adaptable at accepting the General Manager's proposal?
No, I'm not.
Thank you.
There's 520 houses been identified. Out of those 500, we're only selecting 200. I find that a bit hard to understand, because then how do we select? Is there a selection process? Also, we need to know the legalities of working on private land, which is who maintains it, who cuts the costs, what happens if we need a bit more than this information. I find it hard to believe that we're only selecting 200 houses out of the 520. It's not even half. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor McGee.
I think that we have to make a start on this. I think it's quite obvious that Well, I certainly don't have sewage coming up in my house, and I think that we really need, I think that 150,000 and 200 houses straight up is a start. And I think if the offer were put to the houses most affected to apply, and we'll pretty much be able to verify through previous complaints and proof of the incidents in the information that we already have at hand, who they pretty much are. And if we at least put the offer open now, starting soon, that people may apply, then not necessarily the first 200, but certainly if we make a start, and if we've got to start, we really do. I just believe that, I think it's very reasonable. 150, 200 houses is a very good start. The other 300, that would be, because it also, I think it'll place an urgency upon the stormwater situation, where people are illegally connected to the sewage system with their stormwater. Then we can start supplying some letters to speed up that process where they remove illegal connections. And that way, it may all clean up, with the sewer system fixed up without the stormwater going in there. We could well find that 100 might fix it in the most urgent. And I dare say that the administration would be well aware of the top 50 that could really use these. And I dare say if the people can apply or are given an avenue to apply, I think I'd just like to see it make that offer to the community and to have the money there so that it could be done quickly. We've got winter coming on. It was supposed to be a dry summer and it was far from it. So it's winter coming on. I think if we have this in train and we can move quickly when and if people are approved, and then as far, we can work out the responsibility for who maintains these reflux valves once they're in. I'm sure people would be happy to take on that responsibility if we are fitting them, and to give us a waiver of any legalities to enter their property and fit this, as long as it covers both sides. I think it'd be pretty straightforward, and I think that it's a very reasonable sum to start with. And it is a start, and it needs to start. This has been going on for a long time.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Cole?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Statham. Look, I just want to hover on one of the lines in the report, and thank you, Mr. Trapp, for the report. It was very good and very in-depth. It states under risk management, public health is one of the risks with this issue. And that's what we have here, people. We have public health is one of the risks with this issue. I really don't think we can wait for the Lithgow flood study and plan to be finalised. I agree with Councillor Ring and Councillor Marnie. We need to bite the bullet. I understand that there's legalities involved and legislation involved regarding to who will maintain it going forward, but that's something we need to work through. As Councillor Ring said, we don't live in a third world country and we need to provide service.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, through the Mayor, could I ask Mr. Trapp, are the sewer mains suitable for the amount of sewerage once the storm water is stopped? Are the mains suitable? Is there enough capacity to carry the sewer that will go down there?
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor.
That's my first
Mr.
piece
Trapp,
of the question.
Through you, Mayor Statham. Without a hydraulic model in front of me, I probably wouldn't be able to give you a complete and 100% accurate answer on that. What I can say is that these issues of sewer overflows and backing up, entering people's properties, outside of the instances where it's a sewer choke, where we found baby wipes and fat build-ups and things like that, it's predominantly happening during wet weather events. So that led me to think that the inundation from stormwater, however it enters the system, would mean that the sewer system is capable of handling the existing sewage and current loads and what we expect to see from developments. However, when it is overloaded due to stormwater inundation, that's when we're having the problem in 99% of cases. But until we have a hydraulic model, that'll be able to inform whether we need to do duplication works, any sort of upsizing on certain mains, whether that's in the trunk mains in Enfield and Cupro and the like. They'll really inform us on what our direction is going forwards.
And
Thank you, Mr. Trapp.
can I have a second question? Yes, sir. What's the intent? Who goes into the garden to dig? Do the people get the money and be told to do it? Or if there was if we could accelerate the smoke testing and eliminate a lot of the stormwater, wouldn't it reduce a lot of these houses because whoever starts digging in these gardens, they're old houses, the first thing they're going to hit is asbestos. That's going to triple the cost. There's 800 or whatever it says here. That's the minimum. It's going to end up 2,000 or 3,000 or maybe more if there's asbestos found in gardens. And I'm just trying to eliminate a lot of it's going to be a blank check if the council appoints anybody. That's my view.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. That's a very good point. I didn't realise that, I've got to say. I'm sure a lot of people here wouldn't have realised that. Mr. Trapp.
Through you, Mayor, to that point, during that process, if the council wishes to move that way, in that future report, we'll aim to provide all those as part of the risk management section so that you can have a fully informed decision. As you've rightly pointed out, a number of the homes in the Extension Estate area are older homes, some of them using or having earthenware, asbestos on site, that sort of thing. So we will have to have a fairly black and white way of going forward with it. Our current policy for sewer connections does dictate some of that and where council's responsibility and where the homeowner's responsibility is, and that's backed by the Local Government Act and Plumbing and Drainage Act. But some of those other risks, as you rightly pointed out, as soon as you go in to excavate, that can open up a can of worms depending on the site. But we'll be able to gain all that or the vast majority of that information for a future report.
Thank you, Mr. Trapp. Councillor Leslie?
Yes, I have another question then I'd like to speak to the item. Do the council standing orders permit an urgent meeting of the Operations Committee? That's the question.
Mr. General Manager?
If there's an appetite for an additional Operations Committee for this purpose, the administration would organise that. Right. There's no impediment, I don't see, in practical operation, given the debate about this matter.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager.
Well,
Councillor Leslie?
In speaking to the item, I think there's too many unanswered questions in this. For me, process is always important. I think once you start rushing processes and not getting answers to questions that all the questions have been raised here, private property, etc., asbestos, whatever, I believe you'd have to have a proper report from that. We haven't got it here. I'm uncomfortable about it, and I would not support this motion. But I won't move it. But I would ask the administration, because it is a matter of urgency. We don't know when the next flood will occur, the next major rainfall. That the administration does organise an urgent meeting of the Operations Committee so that matter can be properly considered.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Right of reply, Councillor Ring.
Yes. With respect to Councillor Price, I understand that.
Councillor Goodwin, thank you, sorry.
I did, Mayor Statham, and what I was going to say is that in the report it says hydraulic assessment of localities that experience sewer and surcharge localised flooding, Cupro Street and Enfield Avenue. Such assessments will provide clarity as to the full program of actions, including the benefit return from sewer reflux valves required to deal with this issue. So I think that we need to be financially prudent and complete the hydraulic assessment first before we allocate any of these funds. And in saying that, I would also support a urgent meeting of the Operations Committee as well to discuss these matters, because I think everything we've spoken about here tonight is relevant.
May I suggest that we defer this matter to a operationals extraordinary meeting?
No. I want my right of reply, please.
Absolutely. Right, your right of reply, Councillor Ring.
Thank you. With respect to Councillor Price's concerns about 520 properties having been identified, that is based on modelling. That is not 520 properties that have sewage pumping up through the houses in storms. In the report, it identifies 28 properties from Council's records from the last, I think, 18 months, 28. I thought going at 200 houses as an upper limit was a quite reasonable and financially prudent number. We may only need to do 28 houses, in which case, fine, let's do them. They don't deserve sewage in their houses. As for doing the hydraulic studies, yes, let's keep doing we're doing that work anyway. But by the time we do that work, by the time we do the smoke testing, by the time people are given a letter, then 12 months later we go back to them, it could be another 2 or 3 years before people have this problem fixed. Now, I'm not asking for every house to be fixed, only the ones that are critical and the ones that have raw sewage coming into them. Council are going to bring, as part of this is Council to bring back a report on how the funds will be applied and how that'll be done. And yes, there could be asbestos in some areas, and then we'll have to make a decision on what happens on that property. But that's anywhere around an old building. 150,000, 154,000, whatever it was that I asked, is only an upper limit. I believe it'll come in significantly less, and it shows the community we're doing something. It's going to take time to get all these projects in. It's going to cost a lot of money. We have old pipes out there. We have old sewer and water pipes. And with water pipes, I assume there could be similarity with sewer pipes. Doesn't matter on the age. They can fail. So I believe we need to allocate the funds. We need a report to come back, and I'm happy for an operations committee meeting to discuss some of these issues. But I think we need to show the community we're serious about dealing with a real problem. How it pans out will be discussed at a further meeting. But let's make a decision now and show the community we hear their problems, we're concerned for their problems, and we're concerned for their safety, and we want to deal with it. I don't think there'll be more than 30 to 50 houses that need a reflux valve at this point in time, but let's deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against?
Call a division.
Councillor Leslie, Councillor O'Connor. Sorry. Yes, all those in favour. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring and Councillor Marnie and Councillor McGee. Against? Councillor Leslie, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Goodwin and Councillor Bryce. I'll call the division, thank you. And Councillor Statham, I'll call it. Oh, yeah, right, thank you.
You need to say it's lost, Mayor.
Yes, the item number sewer management and response to notice of motion has been lost. Thank you. 10.3, strengthening our economy.
I think we have no motion at all now.
That's right.
So I would therefore move that the administration recommendation, I'll move that.
Sorry, just repeat that, please, Councillor.
You can't. The motion's been moved. The item's been lost.
You could move that as a matter of great urgency later in the meeting, perhaps, Councillor Leslie. But we have to stick to procedure. Thank you. Strengthening our economy. Leave 26th of the 2nd, 2024. Suggested governance model. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to move it with amendments. Thank you.
What is your amendment, Councillor Ring?
Of the items, item 2, to read in establishing the committee that the committee be constituted by the General Manager, and in brackets, Ross Gurney to avoid handovers and continuity of work, and 7 other persons appointed from each of the federal and state governments, the knowledge sector, Energy Australia, Centennial Coal, Greenspot, the foundations, and Generator Property Management, and an independent chairperson. 4B, to be modified to representatives from the above organisations, Energy Australia, Centennial Coal, Greenspot, the foundations, and Generator Property Management.
Can I have a second to that? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Ring.
As you stated earlier in the night, Councillor Statham, last week as project director.
Can we just wait for the motion to come up so that we all understand what we're looking at?
Thought it was up.
So Councillor Coleman, you're accepting that amendment?
It's not an amendment, it's a motion.
It's a motion.
But Councillor,
It's a
okay,
motion.
you actually added some points to it.
No, I've amended the points.
I'll foreshadow a motion just now, though.
Thank you, Councillor McGee.
So, if I could. Last week, as project director for the Bushfire Fund that the Lithgow Chamber had, I managed the first Lithgow Investor Forum, an extremely successful forum with over 24 investors from a range of industries consistent with the LEAP document. We had the investors from representing Finland, Denmark, 1 person flew in from the United States. All industries represented are consistent with what is required in LEAP. What I had at that forum were the 5 key players in our transition moving forward. They are all the people that own land that is very important for our future. They're the people who own the industrial land that we can use moving forward. There was immense interest from all potential investors with the options that will be made available in the short, medium and long term. I believe it's important that representatives from these 5 organisations need to be on this committee. The administration is already proposing that Energy Australia and Centennial, so why not the other 3? All are private entities, so probity is not an issue. Government departments at both federal and state level will be required to work with our council and the Department of Regional New South Wales. They're all supportive of working with these companies. Over 2 years ago, I started discussions with all of these major players, and they now understand the synergies between their properties. Centennial Coal is now talking to the regulator about the adaptive reuse of mining sites moving into the future. It's a long process, but why not adaptive reuse a brown site rather than destroying a green site? Greenspot, land for industrial and commercial use with an associated 1,300 residential blocks. Foundations, commercial area between 200 and 300 blocks. Energy Australia is putting up new projects, but I've also referred businesses to them that are looking at developing new batteries, not lithium, with a rare earth or rare mineral that can be harvested potentially from coal ash. We got a lot of coal ash. So we need these people. These are the people that are going to be driving development and change in our community. We need to make this happen. They are the people the investors are going to be talking to. It is happening. It's happening now, and it will continue into the future. So I think it's very important that we have these people there. I wasn't going to originally support this motion full stop, but if these people are there, then I'll support it, because they are the people with the lands. They're the people we need to be working with moving forward. It is critical.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Just before Councillor Coleman speaks to that, the General Manager would like to make a comment. Thank you.
I do need to flag, Mayor, that the motion as tabled causes me some issues. In fact, I believe it would present conflicts of interest that could not be managed. And as the council has been briefed twice on the governance structure, there's a 4-tier layer which the public has not had the benefit of. But we've got the group of 7, and what we're looking to do is, and best practice is to deal with the knowledge sector, the 2 levels of government, those sectors, the sectors that are particularly affected by disruption and the need to transition their workforce, so the mining and energy sector, and of course the unions and an independent chair. The next level of engagement, and this is a very inclusive engagement with the private sector and the community, the next level is a level of major stakeholders in the city. So that would include Tallis, would include the foundations, it would include the Green Spot site. But in terms, it would be impossible in my view, or so constrain the functioning of this group at the top steering this, to have the developers of live projects around the table. And I know some will say, well, Banpu, on behalf of the mining sector, might do development, as might Energy Australia. But what we'd be looking to do is still have probity controls, but reach into those organisations, not to deal with the section that's managing the local operation or advancing development proposals in the city, but to deal with the section of the part of that massive organisations between Banpu and Energy Australia that are dealing with transition in the Latrobe Valley, in the Hunter Valley, and elsewhere across Australia. So if I had to make a ruling, an advice to the council, I believe the motion is so close and presents unmanageable conflicts of interest that it's ultra vires and cannot be considered by the council tonight. Is my advice.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Coleman, are you willing to still accept that amendment? Yes, all right. Councillor Ring?
No, I've spoken to it.
I've spoken. It's
Councillor
my
Coleman.
turn.
Thank you.
I think it's important that we have the debate. I understand what the General Manager has said, but it's still important to have the debate. When I read the recommendation, I saw the mining and energy union and mining sector and energy sector, and I understand why they're in the recommendation. But what I'm concerned about is the fact that Green Spot, the foundations and the generator property management wasn't in the recommendation. I don't understand what conflicts would there be, and besides, we'd work through them. Even though the energy and the mining sector are mentioned, we still need Green Spot and the foundations, because they're the jobs of the future. If we're going to transition, we need to provide encouragement to transition. That's what the LEAP project, for me, is all about.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce?
I won't support the amendments. The fact that the unions were left out, how are we going to transition our workforce without the help of the unions? They understand their workers more than anyone else. And the mining and energy unions are the biggest workers that are going to be affected by the transition, the mines and the powerhouse. The other thing is, as much as Green Spot and the foundations are the future for our new locations for our industries, they are still developers. They're not the ones transitioning workforce. This is what this is about.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Goodwin?
Thanks, Mayor Statham. They were very strong words by the General Manager. We have, in the recommendation, we're having experts, an independent chair that is going to chair it. We have the committee that will report back to council for everything that they're going to do. This is best practice, and I'm happy with the administration's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Anyone else? Councillor McGee?
Yes, I've been happy with the information sessions regarding the LEAP project. The 4 tiers, as described by the General Manager, are extremely important, and each level critical to the success of the whole system that's being put in place. The universities play an important part, and the upper echelon of all of those companies. And so there is a place for Green Spot, for the foundations. They are all valuable players in the entire game, but this is the start of it. And so that's why I foreshadowed the motion to go back, but we'll deal with this motion first.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Leslie?
LEAP sounds good. Sounds like LEAP. Lithgow LEAP, Lithgow Emerging Economic Plan. Emerging also seems to imply that we want something new, maybe a leap into the middle of the 21st century. Yet 3 recommended committee members out of 7 represent fully owned foreign companies, companies primarily associated with last century technologies, companies who, when they finish with Lithgow, will leave without a backward glance. Sorry, this recommendation is a leap back to 1925. I can only be thankful there's not a recommendation for a representative of the nuclear power lobby. I tried hard over the weekend to find an amendment that might make this process work, without success. Any amendments I might move would be a direct negative of this motion. It's always harder to see what's missing but here goes. No mention of representatives from manufacturing industry, the pharmaceutical industry, information technology, or the Chamber of Commerce, either local or statewide. Finally, how can this model expect to get any widespread support if there's not even a nod to the conservation issues or the protection of our natural environment? I can only vote against this motion and hope, probably without hope, that the motion is defeated and that the administration brings back something sensible.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Marnie.
Thank you, Mayor. Quite a bit of it makes sense to me. Certainly the federal-state representation, understanding the knowledge sector, and I think Councillor Bryce rightly points out that there's a transitioning workforce and the unions need to be involved as part of that. Council is critical to understanding its people, so it needs to be there. I'm sort of a bit stuck with the industry representation. Where is the emerging industry representation? Like, we're transitioning from this point to that point, but there's no one to meet us at the gate, as far as I can see in this structure. Yes, it's critical those industries involved, and yes, we will continue to generate power in Lithgow one way or another. I don't think that won't happen, but that's what's I can't get my head around. The other area, look, it may not be that this committee deals with it. There's other elements around transport investment. We sit at a very critical transport hub. I'm not seeing that in here. It may be outside. I've also, and yes, I'm sorry, but workforce accommodation is unclear when we hit the marks, how do we house these people when they land and things are working for us? So that's the issues I've got. Is I sort of see that three-sided triangle. I might be out in some other committee, and I'm happy to pose a question to the staff where they see those elements being in place with this LEAP committee. We've got one of the highest volume workforces in the health and personal care sector, which is one of our biggest segments of our transitioning employment, whether it's high value as in dollars, certainly high value in a lot of other ways. I'm not sure where that's represented and trends that are happening to our industry sectors in our area. So I'm very supportive of the LEAP initiative. So I'm finding myself in a difficult spot. So if I can get any light on that, I'm happy to listen.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Mr. General Manager, thank you.
Through you, Mayor, thanks for those comments. And again, that gives me the opportunity to tease out that this is a very inclusive process, but at the end of the day, it's exceptionally hard. Most communities and most local government areas and most areas which have undergone this disruption have failed horrifically, and they've not been able to transition their economy. So we need some people that are at the top of their game with deep experience nationally, but more, just as importantly, internationally, able to navigate up and down with other levels of government, state and federal, but also draw from the intellect and the resources in this city, or not even in this city. And just to speak to Councillor Mahoney's point, I just remind the Council, at the briefings that we provided, we spoke of the 4-tier structure, and in that 4-tier structure underneath, we had the concept of clusters. So there will be a cluster for ageing and health. There will be a cluster for planning. There's a significant workload of complex planning to find a way through. There will be a cluster for advanced manufacturing. There will be a cluster, still to be determined by the expert group what the priority are, but there'll be a cluster for 21st century transportation, green hydrogen, exploiting our proximity to highways and railways. There will be a cluster if the committee decides and the council sanctions that in their 12-month plan for environment and tourism opportunities. We can't boil the ocean, to use that term, and do everything at once, but this committee needs to lead on behalf of the council and working with the council, and it needs to draw from those clusters. And next level down, it needs to draw from the community. Those across the community that are particularly interested and engaged and want to be engaged in the city's future. And then fourth level down, we will continuously remind the community, the whole community, of what's occurring and check in with them. So you're concerned about, but you can't have a committee at the top that has an unwieldy amount of people. So that's why there's this idea of clusters and multiple layers.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager.
Stephen, could I just respond to that? Not in debate, but I thank you for that. It was a very simple illustration of where we're going. So, no, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Mahoney. Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Right of reply, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen. The claim that it's been an inclusive process, I'm sorry, but the majority of the business community would not see that. There's been very little consultation or discussion. I'm not confident of much moving forward. That's my personal opinion. In terms of what's going to drive the change moving forward for our economy, is developers with land that can be sold and attract in appropriate people. To me, it sounds, we just want a committee which is going to be a talk first. Let's get the academics in. Bottom line is the people who own the land want it developed. They want to attract the industries. As for green hydrogen, we are talking to companies like that. We had them at the investor forum and talking to Centennial about their surplus water, which is not potable, which can be used for green hydrogen. We also have people looking at industrial scale glass houses, reclaiming and recycling of materials, as well as renewable energies. And there's some very exciting stuff which is happening. And I believe within 2 years we'll start to see some fruits of that labour. As for where Councillor Mahoney is concerned about where they're going to live, between what's occurring now, the green spot development and the foundations, within the next 2 to 3 years, we'll have released anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 building blocks. Talking to potential developers and investors in this area, the green spot is ideal for them because not only do you have the industrial land, but housing lands. Now, a number of the people there were very cognizant of the fact that if they bought the land, they're not going to lose. If they build houses for their staff to rent with the potential sale down the track, they're not going to lose. To me, this is a good compromise.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? Councillor Coleman and Councillor Ring. Against? Councillor Bryce, Goodwin, O'Connor, McGee, Leslie, Mahoney and Statham. A division is called. Hands up those who are against it. Councillor Ring and Councillor for, so beg your pardon. Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, four. Councillor Coleman and Councillor Ring. Against, and for the yes. Against the this is what happens when you haven't had dinner. Against the motion, Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Marnie and Councillor Leslie and Councillor Statham. Thank you.
So yeah, I foreshadowed a motion to return this motion to its original form.
I need a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Bryce. All those in favour say aye. No. Debate, another debate. All right, Councillor McGee.
Yes, I prefer it in its original form. There's been a lot of information sessions regarding this, and this is just the start of it. All of those things that both Councillor Marnie and Councillor Ring have suggested are issues against this are issues that will be directly addressed by this. As the General Manager mentioned, clusters coming off the hub what will address issues as they arise, and then they will be addressed, and they can be addressed all the way down to the community level. So to suggest that there's somehow anything that's not involving the community and our top investors, which we all recognise, is just ludicrous.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor Bryce.
I think we've debated this to death, but anyway, I'm happy with the original motion, recommendation. It includes who needs to be included, and for me it was the unions had to be included, as our people is the people that we have to work with these people to transition them into the new industries.
Councillor Bryce, anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Leslie.
Yes, this motion is actually worse than the first one, as far as I'm concerned. I don't want to speak to it, but I will, except for this last comment. How can this model expect to get any widespread support if there's not even a nod to conservation issues or the protection of our natural environment? We can't expect the citizens of our town to endorse this. A large number just won't. A large number will just think this is the council foisting someone on it, without any regards to our local environment. I think it's appalling.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Ring.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to support it. I think that should be clear to everyone. I wasn't happy with the model when it was first put up. I don't think the model is going to achieve anything. As for investors, I'm actually talking to investors. I got them to Lithgow. I know what they're looking for, and we are getting a raft of industries. And as for conservation, we had National Parks and Wildlife Service present at the event to attract tourism investors and to build off the work that's being done on the Gardens of Stone. Everyone at that forum understands the need for conservation, for recycling, repurposing, and moving forward. We are moving away from the dark ages.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie.
Not necessarily against anything, and I won't go into direct debate with individual councillors. This is a critical decision that we're making, and I want to get my decision right. I think what Councillor Ring's spoken to is critical enablers of activity, and I'm taking the General Manager's advice in good faith that there is an unworkable conflict of interest. I'm listening to some of the work that Councillor Ring is doing. I'm interested where the diversity of thinkers in the industry group. I'm still concerned about intellectual monocultures. We've got a group that are all coming out of the mining power sector. That concerns me as our industry thinking style. It's very interesting listening to some of the things unfolding that Councillor Ring talks to. That's quite exciting, that we have some forward-facing industries, we have advanced manufacturing, and we have these enabling landscapes that can deliver on that important triangle, which is employment, livability, and housing. And those blends that those enabling landscapes provide is quite exciting. So I'm not against LEAP. I know that I might hear comments about what I think in other, that font of facts Facebook, but I'm very supportive of the LEAP program. I just want to get the thinking right around it, and I don't want to lose those opportunities for enabling. I appreciate the General Manager's discussion on clusters. I think that's important that this is seen by the community. Now, Councillor Ring's raised some issues around visibility and engagement through this process. That's been not, I don't think it's been the strength of the LEAP as far as the community. I think there's very little understanding in the community. There's an understanding in a relatively small sector of the community. So I appreciate that information being brought out in a public meeting in front of people. That's all I've got to say. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor McGee.
Yes, I think that, just to reiterate, the 355 committee setup is the way to go. We've confirmed that through information sessions and looking at the other options at length. To say that this is anything but a holistic approach to the future of Lithgow is, people haven't been paying attention. I've missed an information session, and it will cover housing, it will cover the unions. Everyone will be involved. Conservation and environment will be a major player in this. To say that it won't be considered is just ludicrous. Once again, it's good to see the Chamber of Commerce engaging with businesses and high-end factories and things like that. That's what they're supposed to do. But this is bigger than just that. This is a holistic start, and this is only the start. This is just the beginning. So I'm happy with this.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Oops, sorry. Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Marnie and Councillor Coleman and Councillor Statham against. Councillor Leslie and Councillor Ring. I'll call a division, thank you. Councillor Statham, Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Marnie and Councillor Coleman. Thank you. And against, thank you. Councillor Ring and Councillor Ring and Councillor Leslie. Thank you. 10.4, enhancing our natural environment. 10.5, responsible governance and civic leadership. Thank you. It's the quarter two budget review. Thank you. Could I have somebody move this, please? Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Have a seconder, thank you. Councillor McGee. Councillor Bryce.
There's nothing much to talk about it. It's a good report, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor McGee. No comments? Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Coleman.
I note in the report, and it is a good report, it mentions surplus several times. What it doesn't mention is, and we don't see a report on the unspent SRV. Is one coming forward in regards to that?
Mr. Gurney, thank you.
Through you, Ms. Statham, we can update the councillors on that. We could do that via memo or report to council.
Thank you.
Mr. Gurney.
Yeah, Councillor Statham, I've got a question for you to the administration.
Just one moment, please. Who moved that? Councillor Bryce and Councillor McGee seconded that. Councillor McGee? No, Councillor Ring.
Okay. Councillor Coleman stole one of my questions.
Sorry.
That's okay. On point 2 on page 48 of 75 of the quarterly report, says the council is on track to achieve 2023-24 total salaries and wages savings of 1.46 million. Are we going to delete these positions? Do we need them? Why are we looking at 1.46 million in salary savings?
Mr Burney, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. So this was a figure that was estimated and included in the budget, so we were assuming that it would occur over the 12 months based on the vacant positions when the budget was put together and the time it's taking to fill a number of positions as well. So it's related to two things: delayed recruitment in particular. It is acknowledged there are some long-term positions. In some cases, they're filled by contractors at the moment. At this stage, there's no plan to delete positions. We're still trying to actively recruit for vacant positions. There's around, at the last estimate, there's around about 40 in the organisation, which are being recruited for at the moment.
Thank you, Mr Gurney. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Bryce? Councillor Marnie?
Yeah, fairly interchangeable. Just a couple of quick things. Just noting that I'm going to put on my glasses. I've had to borrow Councillor Coleman's glasses. It's interesting seeing her view on things, but I'm not sure I'm quite comfortable with the camera. But anyway, there we are. I'm just noting that the sewer fund has a surplus of 898,000. So, just as a consideration in the discussions that went on earlier on, just one other question, if I could, given that we received $13.8 million payment for the outstanding natural disaster claims, how does that work with, and it's a question please for you, Mayor, with our ability now to, and that we appear to be through the EPAR approvals, are we in a position to run projects concurrently in the roads works, particularly I'm looking to? So if I could get an answer there, please.
Mr Gurney, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. So with the EPAR approvals, we can't commence work until the projects are approved.
Okay.
Otherwise, we can't claim any funds. So that's an obstacle at the moment. The 13.8 million that was paid was simply to restore what council had already paid out to contractors and for works to be completed. So it simply restored council's cash flow position.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Gurney. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Goodwin?
Mayor Statham, I see, this is probably just for the public, but I've been reading down here on Q2, the comprehensive review of the capital works program resulted in a net reduction of the program of $12 million. The program has thus been reduced to a total of $40 million. Can I ask, through you, Mayor, Mr Gurney, the processes and why that's happened? It's very interesting.
Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. The main part of the capital works program that was taken out or rephased, it doesn't mean it's not going to be done, it just means that it's been rephased, was the natural disaster projects for the reasons I've just mentioned. There's uncertainty as to when the unapproved works, Browns Gap Road having been approved, but the other significant works, there's uncertainty as to when they can commence. So to ensure we have a realistic program that the council can complete those projects, and that was over 11.5 million were taken out. As well, there were, which are listed, the key ones are listed in the report. There are a number of additions and deductions of other rephased projects.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr Gurney. Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. If there's no one else ready to speak, Councillor Bryce, right of reply? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried, thank you. Portland Exelou, supply and install at Portland Savile Park. Councillor.
Happy to second.
Hand up immediately. Thank you.
Yeah, these toilet facilities are much needed. They'll be well used, that's for sure, with the touch football, and other sports held there. It's a well-used area, Savile Park, and there's the Tidy Towns children's playground there as well, and the trees that have been planted. We've put in some big trees there, which as they grow, there'll be more and more people utilising the area. So just fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor Bryce.
I often drive into Portland through past Savile Park, and the amount of kids and families using the park is quite pleasing, and so the toilets will be an asset to that area. I just hope it doesn't take 10 years like the Rydal ones, that's all.
We're the same, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Ring, thank you.
I agree with Councillor McGee. The park is heavily used. The toilet facilities there are well overdue to be replaced. I have a question for you, Councillor Statham, through the administration. Are the proposed facilities, we're talking about 2 exeloos, 2 single pans, will that be adequate given that what we're replacing are 3 pans and a urinal? We're effectively reducing the capacity. Will that be enough?
Mr Edgecombe, thank you.
That would need to be something that I would need to take on notice and provide some advice back tomorrow.
Well, I would have expected to be able to get an answer for that tonight, but this is important for Portland. I'm not going to hold it up, but I will like an answer tomorrow, please.
Mr Edgecombe, Councillor Ring. Councillor Coleman.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Statham. Look, the removal of the amenity block that's there at the moment is very well welcomed. It's a bit of an eyesore. I do have a question. How long is this going to take? As we debated earlier in the night, Ironfest is coming to Portland in April. So what's going to happen? Is it going to be there before then, or are you looking at a timeline afterwards? Because we are going to be inundated with visitors, hopefully, with Ironfest.
May I suggest they would be hiring lots of portable toilets, like they usually do?
Probably something that the administration can work through with them when they meet with them.
Yes. Anyway, an answer for you, from you, Mr Edgecombe, please.
It's been confirmed, through you, Mayor Statham, sorry, it's been confirmed that when we procure the units, which will happen post the decision of council, that I think delivery occurs late May. So it'll be well and truly after the event.
Thank you, Mr Edgecombe. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee, right of reply. No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. The 26th of the 2nd, 2024 review of policy 8.7, investment policy. Can I have somebody move this thing?
Happy to move it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ring and Councillor Goodwin.
It was discussed at the Finance Committee, the recent one. There's very minor changes. I don't think there's really much to debate on it.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Goodwin?
I've read the report as well. There's been a couple of changes. Could Mr Gurney explain why these changes had to happen for me, please?
Mr Gurney, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. There are only a couple of minor changes which reflect current practice and also the prudent risk management of the investment portfolio. So they're simply 2 changes designed to reduce risk, and that's to take out the option of investing in lower than BBB category investments, and also to reduce the percentage that can be allocated to any particular rating category.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin and Mr Gurney. Anyone else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Ring.
No, just put it,
I'll
please.
put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Thank you. Unanimously. Review of policy 9.14, risk management. Could I have somebody move this? Thank you.
Happy
Thank
to
you,
second.
Councillor Marnie. Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Marnie.
I won't speak to this in detail. There's a presentation given to the information session. It's obviously not, it's a bit of a dry piece of work, but important, and I thank the staff for their work on it. So, yeah, I won't add a lot more to that. The only thing I'll say is there's obviously clear consideration of risk registers, and we're starting to map out our risks, which I think is a very positive thing for the organisation. So, a good bit of policy work. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mahoney. Councillor Ring.
Nothing more other than I concur with Councillor Mahoney. It is a good policy document. It has been reduced and easy to read.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Right reply, Councillor Mahoney? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. We move now to Council Committee reports. 11.1, Seven Valleys Tourism Minutes of the 27th of November 2023. Could I have somebody move those, thank you?
Happy to move. I do have a question.
Yes, your question, Councillor Coleman?
I note in the minutes that...
I'll have a seconder, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you. I just note in the minutes that they were talking about the Gardens of Stone Conservation Area update. I was wondering if that particular talk or whatever it was, because I didn't get to go to that meeting, could come to an information session. They were talking about the Wild Bush, what are they? The Wild Bush Association, or could we get some, could that come to an information session? It's quite interesting and what's happening with the Garden of Stone, or could we get that now?
Mr. General Manager.
Probably unrelated to the adoption of the minutes, but we'll take a note of that and contact National Parks and organise a briefing.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Mahoney? Right, Councillor Leslie?
Yes, Mayor Statham. Can I ask that the author's name be actually included so that it becomes part of the document when it's put on the council's website?
Can you just enlighten me on that? I'm not sure what you mean. Ah, yes, definitely. Thank you. I'm sure we can do that. Any other speakers?
Oh, who was the author, if I may?
Pardon? Mr. Simon Francis, thank you. If there's no other debate, Councillor Coleman, right of reply? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. 11.2, Operations Committee meeting minutes, the 5th of December 2023. Can I have someone move that, thank you?
Councillor
McGee?
it. I'll second it.
Seconded, Councillor Ring. Councillor McGee.
Yes, a good meeting, and highlighted was the keeping an eye on the Farmers Creek, Burton Street Causeway crossing, which is being redone, and hopefully for the last time. So it's being looked at very thoroughly every step of the way, and there'll be progress reports all the way along. So it's looking good, though.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor Ring?
No, nothing to add.
If there's no other debate, Councillor Leslie?
Thank you. I'm not sure that it was so much a good meeting, it's an interesting meeting. And I refer to the minutes of the Operations Committee meeting, an item in general business, and I quote, Councillor S. Leslie asked for information in relation to the Lockgate matter for Lake Lyell, in particular the Sir Thomas Mitchell Drive and the risk analysis carried out. The General Manager advised that there was advice provided by memorandum to all councillors. A point of order was called by M. Statham, that's the wording, to Councillor S. Leslie. Councillor S. McGee.
Point of order, this was not this meeting.
I did not attend that meeting, Councillor Leslie.
Which one are we talking about?
Operations, but I unfortunately was...
This is the 5th, Operations 5th of December.
Point of order,
No, I withdraw it, so...
Thank you. Yes, that wasn't the meeting. I wasn't at the meeting.
I think, Mayor Statham, that you were at the meeting. It's
Which
in the minutes
meeting
that
is
you were
this?
there. Allow me to continue. A point of order was called by M. Statham to Councillor S. Leslie. Councillor S. McGee supported this point of order. I assume that this was the basis for Councillor McGee's motion, seconded by Councillor Goodwin, that I be suspended for 3 months. A division showed that you supported this motion. My question to the General Manager at the December 5th meeting of the Operations Committee, seeking the release of the detailed risk analysis, was valid. I now have proof that no detailed risk analysis was undertaken. On the 1st of February, I submitted a Freedom of Information, GIPA, request asking for the detailed risk analysis. I received 4 emails. They categorically proved that no detailed risk analysis was carried out before the closures announced on the 31st of October 2023. In summary, no risk analysis was undertaken. A keyword search of all the documents failed to find any of the following words: safety, danger, fatal, drown, accident, survey, study, worry,
Point
fear,
of order, Mayor Statham.
history, crash, children,
Point of order,
or
Councillor
problem.
McGee.
My point of order is that this has nothing to do with the minutes. This is about a GIPA request regarding a question that was asked. This is not relevant.
Yes, Councillor Leslie, I can't accept that. I'm sorry. We're here to discuss to move the minutes and second the minutes.
Right, I am speaking to the item in the minutes. So the statement following that the fact is there was no detailed risk analysis. We were lied to. And the decision to close those secondary access roads, clearly a policy decision, is not an operational one and was done illegally. And I call on you, Madam Mayor, for an apology, and also from Councillor McGee, and for the General Manager to resign.
Sorry, Councillor Leslie, you have had to apologise to me more than probably 10 times in 2 years, and I've never put you on the spot and embarrassed you. So you can continue to embarrass me. I'm not going to put up with your antics at any of the meetings, whether they be this meeting or a committee meeting. Ratepayers are paying money to get action, not verbally abusing the General Manager and myself on many occasions. Move on, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak today? Right reply, Councillor McGee.
No, I'll keep it to the point. Well, put it.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Are you calling a division?
I certainly will call a division with much pleasure. Hands up those, please, that are going to vote for the minutes of the Operations Committee. Councillor Bryce, Goodwin, O'Connor, McGee, Marnie, Ring and Coleman and Statham. Thank you for your support. And against, Councillor Leslie. Thank you.
Excuse me, I don't understand what you mean by thank you for your support.
I'm only voting for the minutes.
I'm voting for the minutes, that's
exactly what you're voting for the minutes. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Just needed the clarification.
26th of the 2nd, 2024, Sports Advisory Committee meeting, the 13th of December 2024. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Bryce. Have a seconder, thank you. Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodwin.
No, it was a good meeting. We're just hoping for the new media person that hopefully he'll publish all the winners of the nominations on our Facebook. So moving forward. Thank you.
Good point. Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Anyone else wishing to speak? I'll put the motion. Councillor Bryce? No? I'll put the motion.
Sorry, just one thing. At the Sports Committee, there was a swimming carnival, a district swimming carnival that goes from Blaxland to Lake Angelico. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Lake Angelico.
And whatever. And 20-odd associations at our swimming pool, and they all praised our facilities at the swimming pool. So they were so impressed with our pool. Where the president of the swimming club said that it's the best in our district. So that's pretty high.
Totally agree, and I'm sure everyone in the room would agree with that, Councillor Bryce. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Carried. Seven Valleys Tourism Minutes of the 23rd of January 2024.
Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. A seconder, thank you. Thank you, Councillor, I'm not sure who it was, Bryce or Marnie. Can anyone tell me, please? I'm not sure who. Marnie? Councillor Coleman?
Could we just include in that information session, through the General Manager, the Wild Bush Luxury about Gardens of Stone multi-day walk accommodation? That'd be also great to see them at an information session and give council a full briefing. It's very exciting what's happening there.
May I just say that the Wild Bush people were in attendance at that meeting, so I don't think you'll probably get them back. I think they're not locals. They have that all around Australia.
Oh, well, we can always ask. They can always say no.
Certainly put some inquiries in. Thank you.
Yeah, look, like Councillor Coleman, I think this multi-day walk accommodation model is fantastic. I'm sure a staff member like Mr. Elwood coming on board would be ready to sort of engage with these tourism options. I saw the presentation. I thought it was fantastic, and some really exciting things through the Capertee and through the Walgan. So yeah, it's something to look forward to.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Coleman. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Thank you. TALC committee meeting minutes,
I'll move
the 1st of February 2024. Councillor Leslie. Have a seconder, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Leslie?
Yes, the administration's recommendation is pretty accurate. There's one matter I would raise, though. That there was the matter of the one-way flow in Main Lane, the lane just behind us here. It's not recorded as one of the recommendations because a further report is coming back on that one. But I would flag that although the police and the Transport Bureau voted in favour of it, I voted against it. I felt that we were setting up expectations that may not be met, but it will come back to this council to make a decision. It's just in the case of open disclosure.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Bryce? If there's no other speakers, I'll put Councillor Marnie.
Can I, just in regard to May Lane, which direction were they looking at one way?
Only from the middle to the Union Theatre.
Okay.
And the other half of Main Lane would have been a two-way.
Okay, thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Thank you. Crime Prevention Committee meeting minutes, the 5th of February 2024.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce?
No, discuss.
Councillor Coleman?
No, I'm happy for the motion to go through.
Anybody wishing to speak? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Carried. Operations Committee meeting minutes of 6th of February 2024.
And I'll second.
McGee, Councillor Bryce. Councillor McGee, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, it was a good meeting again. The Burton Street Causeway moving along again, but the project's update report was quite comprehensive, and since thinking about it, I would very much like to see that list of activities and their progress being forwarded to our new media person so that they may follow up through the week, taking pictures and putting it on the website as to where all of those projects are up to, and just letting the public know what's happening. You know, they could probably do 2 or 3 a day, and just getting them out and about, because that was a big list, a comprehensive list of all of the things that are going on in our LGA, and it's diverse, it's all over the LGA, and I just think it'd be a really good way to let people know what's happening, where things are up to, and like it doesn't have to go into the future, but perhaps in the future, like they could be putting up even more information. But just a suggestion on there, but otherwise the minutes are right.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Mr Elwood would like to speak to that. Thank you.
Through yourself, Mayor, the issue that you've identified, we have also identified, and we actually have a website or a web page, I should say, on the council website that is currently under development, which will list the majority of those projects. So residents and anyone that's interested will be able to look through. We'll be able to advise by the next council meeting a time frame for that, and we will follow through with the staff media as well.
Thank you, Mr Elwood. Councillor Bryce. If there's no further discussion, Councillor Lett.
Just a comment. Despite his promise at the last council meeting that he wouldn't chair the operations committee meeting, Councillor McGee actually did.
Well done, Councillor McGee. Thank you, Councillor Leslie, for bringing that to our attention. It's good to hear somebody smiling.
Well, he did say it.
2024, the 26th of the 2nd, 2020. Oh, yeah, I'm hungry. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. 11.8, Finance Committee meeting minutes.
Happy to move it.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. I'll second it. Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Ring, would you like to speak to that?
It was a good meeting. I had lots to say. I asked lots of questions at these meetings, as Mr Gurney will attest to. The only thing I'm going to reference is the special parking rate levy. I was going to bring a notice of motion on that tonight, but based on that meeting and discussions with Mr Gurney, I decided to hold off to the next Finance Committee meeting. My views on that are very clear. We'll see what happens.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Bryce? No? Any further discussion? I'll put the motion on Councillor Coleman.
Sorry, Mayor. I find it very interesting in that report it states the Director, Finance and Government will review the procurement procedure. If not already included, a definition of consultancy versus a contractor will be added to the procedure to ensure consistent interpretation by staff during procurement activities. I found that quite interesting. I think it is important that we define what the difference is between consultancy and contractor. So yeah, I think that's an important point.
So are you asking this question now, Councillor? No? Yes? Yep, good. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, if I could.
Right of reply, Councillor Ring.
Basically, in relation to that, I asked the question. There is a legal...
Sorry.
I'll wait till you finish it. Take it.
No, I had to mention...
No, that's fine. I'm in no rush. There is a legal definition with New South Wales Treasury which defines what a consultancy is and what a contractor is. That needs to be consistent for our documentation, and the staff need to be aware of it. If you actually read the quarterly report, you'll find a definition in there and a report on consultancies, which is high level. It needs to be all documentation.
Mr Gurney would like to speak to this just briefly. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, just to comment briefly that item has been actioned.
Thank you, Mr Gurney.
Thank you, Mr Gurney and Councillor Ring. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Thank you. Admin, the 26th of the 2nd, 2024, committee meetings that did not proceed. Sometimes there is no quorums. Can I have somebody move this, please? Thank you, Councillor Bryce.
Be the second.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce?
The only thing is that I'm on both of these committees. When they're cancelled, they are pushed back a fair way. Like the next meeting for the women, environmental is the 10th of April. And the women's the 21st of May. I think it's pushed back too far. But obviously we need to address this. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Coleman.
Yes, Mayor Statham, I agree with that statement, Councillor Bryce. They are pushed back too far. I think we need to review that. My concern is that the Environmental Advisory Committee was cancelled due to lack of agenda items. I can't believe that that would be the case. That baffles me, considering how active that particular committee is. Yeah, can someone answer that question? Would you not even hold the meeting anyway? Like, I just find it baffling. Are the committee members not being engaged in regards to this? How is this working?
Mr Elwood, thank you.
Through yourself, Mayor Statham. There was a call for agenda items from committee members and no further items were brought forward. So that's why the decision was made. There were 2 items on the agenda. If I recall, one of them was an information update. There have been questions along that line about bringing the meeting forward from other committee members as well that are not on council. So that discussion is still underway about changing the dates. In regards to the Women's Advisory Committee, there was also a call for nominees from members of community to be on that committee. There were some late nominees for that as well, so a change to the date for that has also been considered. So those 2 dates may be amended on the advice. Thank you.
If I may, Councillor Statham, I may. I accept Mr Elwood's response. However, on the last council, it's not a reflection of him. On the last council, this excuse was used on multiple occasions with the Heritage Committee and the Environment Committee, of which I was on both of them. There needs to be standing, and there should be standing items on these committees that are discussed and moving forward need to be there. Just relying on volunteers to drive it, yes, they can to a certain extent, but I'm sure, I've been to one committee meeting, there are items that need to be discussed on a regular basis. And I just find it hard to believe that there's nothing. We need to have some standard agenda items, and at the next meeting, I think the Environment Committee should identify what they want discussed on a regular basis moving forward.
Just a quick comment, please.
Thank you, Councillor Ring.
Stephen. Agree with Councillor Ring, and just in the short term, I'm happy to assist with filling the void of agenda items, and I'll get in contact with you, Mr Elwood.
Could you just repeat that, please?
I just said I'm happy to assist with filling the void of agenda items for the Environmental Advisory Committee, and I'll be in touch with Mr Elwood.
I'm happy to comment on that. I will certainly, just to comment, Mayor, we'll certainly have a look at standing items, but it sounds to me like there was consensus both from the administration and the other representatives on the committee that there were no items. So the danger is we have these meetings for the meeting's sake. But we'll have a look at standing items, but it sounds to me like we're at risk of fabricating agendas.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Matters of great urgency, thank you.
Yes, Councillor Statham.
Yeah. Sorry, put the motion. Those in favour? Councillor Marnie, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Ring. Against? No one? All right, thank you.
Yep, Councillor Statham, as I stated earlier, after the last council meeting, I went back to...
We're now going to move to business of great urgency, thank you. Councillor Ring.
Thank you. After the last meeting, I decided to go back, because I have stated on a number of occasions, I firmly believe in the importance of governance. I go back and I check legislation. People can get it wrong. What I found is we're no longer using the Local Government Act General Regulations from 2005. We're using the Local Government Act General Regulations 2021. And clause 241 relating to matters of urgent business has been deleted. Now, I was right when I said it was brought in on the 20th of the 8th, I think 2021, but it only became effective, I think, from what I looked up on the phone, in December 2023. So it's very easy for them to miss it, but I think we need to modify our meeting practices.
In many ways, Councillor Ring. Mr Gurney, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, just to give some background and context, the Code of Meeting Practice in section 8.1 refers to the order of business, which Councillor Ring is referring to. That was fixed. This is the Code of Meeting Practice that was adopted by Council. The order of business was fixed by resolution of Council in 2019, and that version of the order of business is the one that's attached. So the order of business, which is an attachment at the end of the Code of Meeting Practice, predates the change in the regulation. There is nothing preventing Council having business of great urgency, but obviously the order of business, which refers to that now redundant clause of the regulation, was passed in 2019. So it simply is restating an old resolution, which can be updated if Council's discretion.
Yes, I appreciate it. I just wanted to bring that attention to the councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Any other matters of great urgency?
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Is the consequence of this discussion that we no longer have motions of great urgency? Because I think they're quite valuable.
There was no motion put forward. I've only raised it as an item to discuss. And at the end of the day, there is provision within the Code of Meeting Practice for a motion, as I said earlier, for a motion to be put forward by a councillor. And I think, on memory, that is the only person who can speak to it, as long as it's second. And I believe the wording, although that might need to be changed with the change to the regulation, it's up to the General Manager to make a decision.
Look, I need to rule if this is a matter of great urgency. I think this is something that somebody could put in notice of motion or do something. It needs to have a policy. We need to have an update. At this moment in time, I do agree with Councillor Leslie that we do have matters of great urgency from time to time. Some of them may not be that urgent. Some of them may be.
Well, I'll move a motion that the Code of Meeting Practice be updated to reflect the current legislative basis.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. You've decided that this is not a matter of business of great urgency. You actually have to put that to a vote. You have to put it to the council that whether or not this is business of great urgency. You've decided, but you can't decide on your own. You have to put it to a vote. So put it to a vote that we consider whether or not it's a business of great urgency, and then if it doesn't get up, then it can't be debated.
No, it doesn't need a vote. You just determine.
Sorry, Councillor Coleman, it does not need a vote.
It's your ruling.
Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I would have brought this as a motion, but I run out of time. I was at the Lithgow tip the other day, and I found out they can't sell the mulch or anything because it's not EPA licensed. Now, the whole tip is going to go haywire if all the mulch and all that. It needs something urgent from the EPA so that we're licensed to sell it.
Mr Trapp, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. Something I'd like to come back to you would be, I believe it is part of the testing work. Some of the parts that go into the mulch, though, will be able to be collected via the green bins and the FOGO bins. So the amount of mulch, green waste and garden organics that actually get to the landfill now will be removed via the bins. So we won't actually have it at the landfill site going forward, well, in lesser amounts, I should say. And then, yeah, we'll undertake some testing and see what we can do with it as a saleable product, as well as what we do with it following it going to be processed at a FOGO facility.
Could I ask that, I'm not being silly, but it might sound like I am. Can I ask that matter be brought to the Environmental Advisory Committee just given the high risk exposure with asbestos contaminated materials that, we just don't want to set ourselves up. But anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Couldn't agree more. Councillor O'Connor's brought something to our attention that is a matter of great urgency. However, we need to get council staff to rectify the situation. So thank you for that. I'd like councillors to consider daylight savings finishes very soon. I've had some requests from residents to have the meetings through the winter months at 6 p.m. and not 7 p.m. You may not think it's a matter of great urgency, but I've had quite a few people and I've put off doing that. Is there any debate or any consideration? Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I think you need to bring it back to the next meeting as a
I'm
motion.
happy to do that.
Or as a mayoral minute, and then we can discuss it.
Thank you. Thank you to the very patient public gallery this evening. We appreciate you coming and listening to the facts and so on. And thank you to the councils and the staff at Lithgow City Council. Meeting closed.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll close the meeting, Councillor Marnie.
All right.
Thank you.